I stood there, in the middle of the bustling airport, my boarding pass clutched so tightly in my fist it crumpled into a sweaty ball. The line behind me shuffled impatiently. The woman at the counter gave me a sympathetic, almost pitiful smile and said again, slower this time, like I was an idiot, "I'm sorry, sir. There's no ticket under your name." I turned to look at her. My wife, my beautiful Jessica, the woman I thought I knew. She just shrugged, her mouth twisted into a fake little smile, the kind she used when she was lying through her perfect white teeth. "Of course," she said, tossing her dark hair back. "We only booked for the family." The words hit me like a slap. The family. As if I was a stranger. As if I wasn't the guy who worked 2 jobs to pay for this family trip. I heard laughter. Sharp, shrill, mean. Jessica's mother, Linda, was standing nearby with her ridiculous designer sunglasses perched on her forehead. She smirked and said loud enough for the whole damn airport to hear, "Maybe you can take a cheap bus and catch up?" They all laughed. Jessica, her mother, her little spoiled sister, the whole disgusting clan. I felt my stomach churn. Not from embarrassment. From something darker. A sickness that crept up the back of my throat and made my hands tremble. I didn't say a word. Didn't make a scene. I just stepped back, let the next passenger through, and turned around, walking away with my suitcase dragging behind me like dead weight. It wasn't until I reached the parking garage, sitting alone behind the steering wheel, staring blankly ahead, that I realized what had just happened. They didn't forget me. They didn't mess up. They planned this. Jessica didn't want me on that trip. She wanted me out of the picture. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel and let out a low, bitter laugh. How could I have been so blind? The signs were all there. The late nights at work. The sudden obsession with her phone, clutching it like a lifeline whenever it buzzed. The fake smiles. The stupid, rehearsed apologies when she came home smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. And now this. Public humiliation. A gut punch to the man who gave her everything. Who would give his damn life for her if she asked. My mind raced, playing back every little thing. Every odd conversation, every whispered phone call, fitting together like a nightmare jigsaw puzzle. There was someone else. There had been someone else for a long time. I should have confronted her right then. I should have driven back to that terminal and ripped her little princess world apart. But I didn't. I sat there for hours, watching the sun dip lower over the skyline, letting the rage stew into something worse, something cold, something patient. I didn't go home that night. I didn't answer her fake, "Where are you?" texts when they finally rolled in, hours later, after she probably realized I wasn't just going to disappear quietly like she hoped. She thought I was weak. She thought she could laugh in my face, throw me away like trash, and not deal with the consequences. She was wrong. So wrong. Because when I finally did come back, I wasn't the same man she left behind at the airport. I parked a few streets away from our house, killing the engine and sitting in the darkness. The porch lights were on, and through the windows, I could see shadows moving, laughing, drinking. So much for Jessica's frantic texts asking where I was. So much for pretending she cared. I crept closer on foot, sticking to the shadows like a damn ghost. Through the half-open window, I could hear music, glasses clinking, the high-pitched giggle that used to make me smile, but now made my skin crawl. Jessica's giggle. And then his voice. I didn't recognize it at first. Deep. Cocky. The voice of a man who thought he owned the world. "You sure he won't show up?" he asked. Jessica laughed. A sharp, cruel sound that twisted the knife already stuck in my gut. "Nah. Tyler's harmless," she said, dragging out the words like I was a joke. "He probably cried all the way home. Poor little puppy." I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. Another voice, her sister's, chimed in. "God, Jess, you're savage. You really gonna leave him like that?" Jessica's answer was immediate, cold. "I've been done. I'm just waiting for the paperwork." After that, a pause. A giggle. Freedom. I stumbled back from the window, heart pounding so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. This wasn't some mistake. This wasn't a drunken one-time thing. Jessica had planned this. Humiliated me. Lied to me. Laughed at me. With him. And God help me, I needed to know who the bastard was. I slipped back to my car, hands shaking, vision blurred with rage. My mind was racing 1,000 miles an hour. Who was he? How long had this been going on? Was he the reason she started dressing differently, wearing perfume to girls' nights? I barely slept that night, My brain stuck in an endless loop of images I didn't want to see. Jessica in his arms. Jessica sneaking around behind my back. Jessica playing me like a fool. The next morning, before the sun even rose, I made a decision. I was going to find out everything. No more trusting her. No more pretending. When Jessica finally came home, alone, fake tired, pretending to care, I was ready. I was calm. I was polite. I asked her if she had a good time. She smiled sweetly and said, "It was just family, babe. You should have come." I swallowed the urge to spit in her face. Instead, I hugged her, kissed her cheek, pretended everything was fine. Because I needed time. Time to access her laptop. Time to hack into her phone records. Time to read every filthy message she thought she could hide. And when I did, I found him. Derek. A personal trainer. Of course. Tanned, cocky, muscles for days. The walking cliché of a homewrecker. Their messages were disgusting. Photos I'll never scrub from my memory. Plans they made. Jokes about me. How sweet little Tyler would never see it coming. I snapped my laptop shut, breathing heavily, knuckles white. My marriage wasn't broken. It was slaughtered. And Jessica had been holding the knife. I sat there in the dark, staring at nothing, feeling something inside me wither and die. The love, the loyalty, the part of me that still wanted to believe in her. Gone. All that was left now was the reckoning. The morning felt wrong from the moment I opened my eyes. Jessica was already downstairs, humming some stupid pop song, pretending like everything was normal. I moved like a machine, brushing my teeth, getting dressed, every motion fueled by cold, shaking rage just under the surface. Today was the day. I came into the kitchen, and there she was, standing barefoot, sipping coffee like she hadn't burned our life to the ground. She gave me that bright, fake smile, the one that used to melt me and now made my stomach turn. "Morning, babe," she said lightly, as if yesterday had never happened. I pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. Silent. Watching. Jessica's smile wavered for half a second before snapping back in place. Something wrong. I kept my voice calm. Too calm. "You ever going to tell me about Derek?" The color drained from her face like a curtain being yanked down. For a long moment, she just stared at me, her mouth slightly open. Then, in true Jessica fashion, she laughed. Laughed. "Oh my God, Tyler. You're being crazy," she said, setting her mug down with a sharp clink. "Are you seriously stalking me now?" "Don't insult me," I said, my voice low. I saw the messages. Her face twisted, not into guilt, but into that ugly, smirking mask she always wore when she thought she was smarter than everyone else. "Fine," she snapped. "Yeah, I've been seeing Derek. So what? Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't have had to find someone who actually makes me feel alive." The words sliced into me. I sat there, gripping the table edge until my knuckles turned white, forcing myself not to explode. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. "You could have just left," I said, my voice shaking with fury. Jessica rolled her eyes and leaned back in her chair like a spoiled teenager caught sneaking out after curfew. "Left? Please," she sneered. "You would have cried, begged, made a whole pathetic scene. This was cleaner. Easier. You're just too damn needy, Tyler. Always hovering, always checking in like some lost puppy." Every word felt like another blow. Another betrayal. "And Derek?" I asked. "You think he loves you?" Jessica laughed again, the sound hollow and cruel. "Love? Derek doesn't do love," she said, grinning. "He does other things way better." I knew exactly what she meant. The cheap motel rooms. The midday disappearances. The photos she hid in her locked folder. I stood up, chair scraping hard against the tile. Jessica flinched, not from fear, but from annoyance. "You're pathetic," she said, standing too. "You were always just a paycheck to me. Derek's fun. You're predictable." I didn't say a word. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I walked past her, grabbing the duffel bag I'd packed the night before. I paused at the door, hearing her start to mutter insults under her breath. "You'll be back," she called after me, laughing. "You always come crawling back." I didn't even turn around. I just walked out, the morning sun burning hot on my face, my fists clenched so tight I thought I might break my own fingers. I wasn't coming back. Not this time. Jessica could rot with her musclehead lover for all I cared. The woman I married was dead, and all that was left behind was a monster wearing her face. I drove without knowing where I was going. Every red light, every passing car, Every mile of cracked asphalt blurred together into one endless smear of fury and heartbreak. I gripped the wheel so hard it felt like it might snap off. The words she said played on repeat in my head, like some sick anthem I couldn't shut off. You were just a paycheck. You'll come crawling back. Predictable. The woman I once thought was my soulmate had ripped me apart, and she hadn't even flinched. I pulled into a random motel on the outskirts of town, a dumpy little place where the neon sign buzzed like a dying insect. Perfect. Inside the room, I threw my bag on the floor and just stood there, staring at the peeling wallpaper, the cheap, stained carpet. This was my life now. Abandoned. Mocked. Treated like garbage by the woman I would have died for. The weight of it all finally crashed down on me. I sat on the edge of the bed and buried my face in my hands, letting out a sound, half growl, half sob, that felt like it was ripping its way out of my soul. I hated her. God, I hated her so much. But worse than that, I hated myself. For trusting her. For loving her. For letting her turn me into this hollow, broken thing. I stayed in that room for hours, just staring at the cracked ceiling, until my phone finally buzzed. A message from Jessica. Don't be dramatic. Come home. We need to talk. No apology. No remorse. Just more control. More manipulation. I didn't answer. I didn't even think about answering. Instead, I scrolled through our old photos. Our wedding day. Vacations. Birthday parties. Her fake smile in every single one. A woman playing the long con. Using me as a stepping stone until something better, or in this case, someone better, came along. I almost smashed the phone against the wall, but I stopped myself. No, I needed it. I needed evidence. Proof. I wasn't just going to disappear like she wanted. Jessica thought she'd won. She thought she had it all figured out. But she forgot one thing. I wasn't the same man anymore. The man she humiliated at the airport, the man she laughed at with her meathead boyfriend, the man she thought was too soft to fight back. He was dead. In his place stood something colder. Sharper. Willing to do whatever it took. She wanted a war. She just declared it. The next morning, I was already outside our house before the sun even came up. Engine off. Sitting low in the seat. Watching. Jessica's world looked so perfect from the outside. Neat little porch. Trimmed hedges. 2 cars in the driveway, mine and hers. But I knew the rot underneath now. The lies. The betrayal. At exactly 7:15 a.m., he showed up. Derek. Mr. Perfect Smile, driving a shiny black Mustang like he was some low-budget movie villain. He didn't even bother parking on the street. Just pulled right up like he owned the place. I watched as Jessica came bouncing out the front door, wearing one of those tight little dresses she used to tell me were just for date nights. Yeah, right. She jumped into his arms like a schoolgirl, laughing loud enough for the whole damn neighborhood to hear. He grabbed her around the waist and whispered something in her ear that made her throw her head back and laugh even harder. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles cracked. She kissed him. Right there. On my driveway. I wanted to storm out of the car, rip him out of his overpriced piece of junk Mustang, and beat him until he forgot his own name. But I didn't. Not yet. They drove off together, and I followed, keeping back just enough not to be obvious. My heart hammered so hard in my chest I could barely hear anything else. Every time they touched, every time she leaned in and smiled at him, it felt like another dagger twisting inside me. They ended up at some fancy brunch spot downtown. All mimosas and avocado toast and fake, plastic smiles. She fed him from her fork, laughing like they were on the set of some cheesy romance movie. I snapped a few photos. Not because I needed them. No, I had enough proof already. But because part of me wanted her to see what she looked like. How cheap. How replaceable. They stayed there for hours, acting like 2 teenagers who had the world wrapped around their fingers. No care for the destruction they'd left behind. No thought for the man they'd gutted and tossed aside like yesterday's trash. When they finally came out, Jessica's phone lit up in her hand. I could see it even from across the parking lot. She read the message and froze. Her face turned pale. She grabbed Derek's arm and showed him the screen. I smiled to myself in the car. Because that message was from me. 2 words, I know. Panic spread across her face like wildfire. She looked around wildly, scanning the parking lot, searching for me. Derek grabbed her by the shoulders, trying to calm her down, but Jessica shoved him off, her cool, bitchy mask finally slipping. Good. Let her feel it. Let her taste even a fraction of the betrayal she shoved down my throat. I started the engine and pulled away before they could spot me. I didn't want a confrontation. Not yet. I wanted her to stew, to sweat, to wonder how much I knew, how deep the knife was buried. Because this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The call came that night. Jessica's name lit up my phone like a flare. I let it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then I picked up, silent. Tyler. Her voice was shaky, uncertain, a sound I hadn't heard from her in years. Good. Yeah. I said flatly. I think we need to talk, she stammered, trying to sound wounded, like I had wronged her. Can you come home? I could almost picture her, pacing the kitchen, biting her lip, pretending to cry. She thought she could fix this with crocodile tears and a tight shirt. She really didn't know me anymore. Sure, I said. I hung up without waiting for a reply. I didn't drive straight there. I made her wait. Let her nerves stew. Let her imagination run wild. When I finally pulled up to the house, the porch light was still on. Jessica was standing outside, arms crossed, shifting from foot to foot, wearing the same damn dress she'd worn for Derek earlier that day. Pathetic. She ran to me the moment I stepped out of the car, throwing her arms around my neck. I stood stiff, unmoving, feeling nothing but disgust as she pressed herself against me. I'm so sorry, she whispered against my ear. I made a mistake. It didn't mean anything. I was just confused. I pushed her back, holding her by the shoulders, looking straight into her fake, watery eyes. How long? I asked. She blinked rapidly. Tyler, How long, Jessica? She hesitated. A beat too long. 1,000 stories forming behind her eyes. Maybe a few weeks, she lied, her voice dripping with fake shame. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. Try 7 months, I said. I read everything. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. No more hiding. No more spinning lies. I stepped past her, into the house, not caring if she followed. Inside, everything was spotless, fake perfect. The illusion she clung to so desperately. I dropped a manila envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside were copies of her messages. Photos. Receipts. Proof. Jessica stared at it like it was a ticking bomb. What's this? She whispered. Insurance, I said calmly. For the divorce. Her face crumpled for half a second before the rage took over. You can't do this to me, she screeched. You can't just walk away like I'm nothing. I smiled, a real smile this time. The first genuine feeling I'd had in days. Funny, I said, heading for the door. That's exactly what you did to me. Behind me, I heard something crash. Maybe a vase, maybe her little fantasy world, but I didn't turn around. Let her scream. Let her throw her tantrum. I was done playing the fool. Jessica wasn't a wife. She was a ticking time bomb, and I'd finally stopped standing close enough to get blown apart. The next morning, my lawyer served her at work. Jessica had barely made it through the front doors of the spa she worked at when a sharp-suited courier handed her the thick, official envelope. Divorce papers. Full documentation. Everything lined up. Her little kingdom crumbled in the blink of an eye. I watched from my car across the street as she ripped the envelope open, reading the first few lines. Her face went from smug to white-hot panic faster than I thought humanly possible. She whipped out her phone, probably calling me, but I had already blocked her number. I wasn't going to listen to another second of her voice. I didn't care what she had to say. Not anymore. I wanted her to feel it, the cold emptiness she had shoved down my throat. I wanted her to live in it. An hour later, she showed up at my motel, banging on the door like a lunatic. I opened it casually, leaning against the frame, arms crossed. Jessica stormed in without waiting for an invitation, eyes wild, hair a mess, mascara smudged from either tears or pure rage. You son of a bitch, she screamed. You're ruining my life. I closed the door slowly behind her, trapping her in the cheap room that reeked of stale smoke and regret. Ruining your life? I asked, amused. Jessica, you torched it yourself. She pointed a shaking finger at me. You think you're better than me? She spat. You're nothing without me. You'll be begging me to come back when you realize no one else will want you. I laughed, a deep, real laugh that made her take a step back. Sweetheart, I said, I'd rather live alone in a cardboard box than spend one more minute with a lying, two-faced, self-obsessed brat like you. Her face twisted into something monstrous, something no amount of makeup could ever hide. The real her. The rotting thing underneath the pretty packaging. You'll regret this, she shrieked. Derek loves me. He's moving in. We're going to have a real life together. Better than anything you ever gave me. I shrugged. Good luck with that, I said. Hope you like sharing him. Jessica blinked, confused. You really think you're the only one? I added casually. Derek's been running through half the women at his gym, including a few of your so-called friends. Her mouth dropped open. For the first time, I saw something real in her eyes. Fear. Doubt. I could have crushed her then. Finished the job. Told her about the screenshots I had. The videos. The nasty little secrets Derek didn't bother hiding. But I didn't need to. She was already breaking. Jessica stumbled back, hitting the edge of the cheap motel table, knocking over a grimy lamp. She looked small now. Pathetic. Not the untouchable queen she thought she was. I opened the door. Get out, I said simply. She hesitated, her mouth opening like she wanted to plead, or rage, or lie some more. But nothing came out. She walked past me, defeated, her heels clicking hollowly against the dirty tile. I watched her disappear down the sidewalk, her shoulders hunched, her head low. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel sad. I felt free. The motel felt less suffocating after she left, like I could finally breathe for the first time in months. I sat back down on the bed, staring at the cracked ceiling again, but this time it didn't feel like the walls were closing in. It felt like space, like possibility. I didn't rush. I didn't make some dramatic post on social media. I didn't call friends to vent. I just sat there in the quiet, letting it all sink in. Jessica was gone. And with her, the weight I didn't even realize I had been carrying for years. All the little ways she had chipped away at me. The criticisms dressed up as help. The manipulation disguised as concern. The endless mind games where I was always wrong and she was always the victim. Gone. It hurt, yeah? It wasn't the clean, righteous kind of anger you see in movies. It was messy, ugly. I missed the idea of her more than the reality. The girl I fell in love with at 23. The nights we stayed up talking about dreams we never chased. The promises she made under the stars and broke in cheap motel rooms with men like Derek. But even through the ache, I knew the truth. She wasn't that girl anymore. Hell, maybe she never was. Jessica was a fantasy I kept alive long after she had stopped deserving it. I thought about the day we got married. The way she smiled at me in front of all our friends and family, wearing white like she deserved it. I thought about all the times I trusted her, defended her, believed her, and I thought about the airport, the way she shrugged me off like an afterthought, laughing while her mother humiliated me. That was who she really was. Not the girl in the wedding dress. Not the wife I thought I knew. And the hardest pill to swallow? I let her do it. I let it go on, day after day, hoping she would change, praying things would get better. They never did. I stood up and grabbed my bag. I didn't even bother looking back at the room. I was done living in places that smelled like other people's failures. I drove out of town with the windows down, the cool air cutting through me, sharp and cleansing. I didn't have a plan, didn't know where I was going. But for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't afraid. Jessica could keep her lies, her fake apologies, her miserable little world built on betrayal. I had something she would never have again. Peace. If there's one thing I learned through all of this, it's this. You can't fix someone who doesn't want to be saved. You can't build a future with someone who's busy burning it down behind your back. If you're ever standing there, wondering if you're crazy, if you're overthinking it, if maybe it's your fault, trust yourself. It's not you. It's them. Walk away. And don't you dare look back. I knew she hated me the moment her father died. But it wasn't always like that. Once, Brooke used to wrap her arms around my chest at night and whisper, "You're the only one I trust." Now, she was standing in a black silk dress at her father's funeral, sunglasses on, smirking like she just won a bet. Her hand gripped my elbow with just enough pressure to hurt as she leaned in and whispered those words that changed everything. "You're nothing without my name." I didn't flinch, not even when she added with a sneer, "Good luck getting hired now." I still remember that moment like a bullet in slow motion. Her family was old money, real East Coast power, not just the kind that buys boats and bottles. And me? I was the charity case they let in the door. Her dad liked me, taught me more about the business world than any Ivy League degree could have. But he was gone now, and Brooke had claws. 3 weeks after the funeral, I was blacklisted from every financial firm in Manhattan. I'm not exaggerating. My phone didn't ring. Recruiters ghosted me mid-interview. One bold HR rep even told me straight, "We were informed you have integrity issues." Integrity. That's rich coming from Brooke, who used to fake charity events just to launder money through her cousin's shell company. Yeah, I knew about that. Her father told me everything. Because deep down, he knew his daughter was poison. And still, I married her. The thing is, I could have survived the career hit. I could have started over. But it was the affair that broke me. It started small. A perfume I didn't recognize. A new phone password. Suddenly working late. Always helping her grieving mother. Brooke didn't grieve. Brooke calculated. I came home early one Thursday. Something felt off. You know that silence that's too quiet? Her heels were by the door, her jacket flung on the banister. But no, hey babe. No music, no sound from upstairs. Just this weird, muffled rhythm coming from the guest room. I walked slow. Didn't want to believe it. Opened the door, just a crack. Enough to see her. Brooke. On top of someone. Moving like a woman who forgot her wedding vows and found religion in a stranger's lap. She didn't see me. Not at first. She was too busy moaning some guy's name. Trevor. Like a damn prayer. Trevor. Her assistant. I closed the door quietly. My chest was ice. I didn't scream. Didn't punch the wall. I just sat on the edge of our bed, staring at my wedding ring like it was a joke. 10 minutes later, she walked into the room wearing a robe like nothing happened. Hair messy, cheeks flushed. She saw my face and froze. Why are you home? She asked. That's all she said. Not sorry. Not this isn't what it looks like. Just, why are you home? I looked at her. Really looked. The smirk on her lips. The way she stood like she still owned the room. And that's when it hit me. She didn't love me. Hell, she didn't even like me. She just thought I was useful. But I was already smiling. Because 5 years earlier, in his wine cellar full of Cuban cigars and power plays, her father had shown me how to hide assets, how to build shell companies, how to structure ownerships through layers and veils until you could own an empire and no one would know. He taught me because he saw something in me. And now, 5 years later, well, let's just say Brooke was about to learn a lesson her daddy forgot to teach her. I didn't raise my voice, didn't throw accusations. I just stood up, grabbed my coat, and said, "You'll see me again, just not the way you expect." And I meant it. She laughed as I walked out. Oh, please, don't be dramatic. But 5 years later, she walked into that merger meeting and saw my name on the acquisition papers. Her jaw dropped. And that was just the beginning. She stood frozen in the boardroom, her freshly manicured fingers gripping the edge of the mahogany table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. The moment our eyes met, her pupils shrank. Her lips parted slightly, trying to form words, but nothing came out. It had been 5 years. 5 long, grueling, glorious years. I wasn't the same man she smeared through the mud. I'd bled, starved, clawed my way out of the hole she tossed me into. But this was better than revenge. This was domination. I watched as she slowly sat down, her gaze darting across the paperwork. The firm her company was about to merge with, the firm she thought was owned by some faceless foreign investors, was mine. Every shell corporation, every trust, every layer, built using the knowledge her father gave me. My name wasn't on anything. Not until today. I leaned back in my chair and nodded to the stunned group of executives. Shall we begin? She didn't speak a word during the meeting. Not when I presented the figures. Not when I outlined the new management structure. Not even when I slid the final clause across the table. One that would push her out of any meaningful authority. She signed it. Her hand trembled, but she signed it. Pride wouldn't let her walk away. Not in front of the board. When the meeting ended and the room emptied, she finally spoke. You planned this, she hissed, face pale and jaw tight. I didn't answer. I just watched her, calm as ever. All these years. You really think this makes us even? I stood up slowly, walked toward her. She flinched. That made me smile. Even, I said quietly. No, this isn't even. You used your family to bury me. You laughed in my face and said I was nothing without your name. Her face tightened. You tried to destroy me. I didn't try. I did, she snapped. There it was. That old Brooke. Arrogant. Venomous. Cruel. I leaned in, so close she could smell my cologne. The same one she once begged me never to change. You know what your father told me the night before he died? She blinked. He said, she's going to burn everything down eventually. Make sure you're the one holding the extinguisher. She slapped me. Hard. Her ring cut my cheek. I didn't flinch. Feel better? I asked. She stared at me, chest heaving. I should have crushed you when I had the chance. You did. And that's the only reason I'm standing here. I turned to leave. You really think this little company will make you a king? She shouted. You're still the same nothing I married. You're still that pathetic intern my dad took pity on. I stopped at the door. You're right, I said over my shoulder. But the difference is, I learned from the best. You're still playing a game you don't even understand. That night, I got a call. From Trevor, the same assistant I caught her with. You should know, he said, his voice low and nervous. She's trying to get your merger flagged. She's calling in favors. Her uncle still has pull with the SEC. I laughed. You think I didn't see that coming? I asked. She can try. You want me to send over the emails? Already got them. But thanks. I hung up and poured myself a glass of scotch. The same brand her father used to drink. Funny how things come full circle. But the real shock came the next morning. A knock on my door. Federal agents. Badge flashed. Warrant in hand. They were investigating Brooke. Fraud. Insider trading. Tax evasion. And they wanted my cooperation. The agents didn't know it yet, but I had files. Years of data. Hidden drives. Her father warned me long ago. Always keep a paper trail. Not for defense. For leverage. As they sat down in my office and unpacked their questions, I opened a drawer and slid a black folder across the desk. Start here, I said. Everything you're looking for is inside. Because Brooke didn't just cheat on me. She stole from her own family. Lied under oath. Cooked books. And I had it all. The agents looked at each other, flipping through the folder. Their expressions shifted from polite formality to something sharper, more focused. One of them, a woman named Agent Ramirez, narrowed her eyes at me. How long have you had this? She asked. Long enough, I replied, calm, collected. I wasn't ready to burn it until now. She nodded slowly. We've had suspicions, but nothing concrete. This is more than a starting point. This is a blueprint. Exactly what I wanted them to see. I hadn't just been collecting dirt. I'd been crafting a weapon. Every bank statement, every false invoice, every recording of whispered phone calls Brooke thought were off the record, they were all neatly organized, time-stamped, cross-referenced. Why now? Ramirez asked. Why give it up? I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window. Because she finally walked into my house thinking it was hers. They stayed for 2 more hours, asking questions, taking copies, confirming the validity of the data. I cooperated with every step, offered names, timelines, even the lawyers who helped her cover it all up. I didn't care anymore about preserving what little remained of our shared world. I wanted it gone. I wanted her to see it all collapse. And that collapse started fast. The news broke 3 days later. Prominent socialite Brooke Carrington investigated for financial crimes. Her face was everywhere. TV, internet, podcasts chewing up her name like meat in a grinder. Suddenly, the same woman who once sneered, good luck getting hired, couldn't get a PR firm to return her calls. But the best part? She still didn't know I was behind it. Not until the gala. It was a high-profile fundraising event hosted by the same organization that had once honored her for philanthropy. I was invited this time, not as her date, but as a silent donor, the kind whose checkbooks buy them a seat at any table. I wore a simple tux, nothing flashy, kept to the back of the room, sipping bourbon while the elite mingled like vultures circling a wounded deer. And then she arrived. Brooke looked stunning, of course. She always did. But there was a crack in the mask now. Her eyes darted, her smile too forced, her laugh a little too loud. She saw me across the room and froze mid-sentence. I raised my glass. She stormed over, ignoring the eyes that turned in her wake. You're enjoying this, she hissed. I tilted my head. Am I? You think this is some kind of game? You ruined me. I smiled. No, Brooke. You ruined yourself. I just made sure the lights were on when it happened. You think you're better than me now? She snapped, too loud. People were staring. I am better than you, I said quietly. Because I don't burn everything I touch. You want to destroy me? She whispered, desperate, eyes glossed with panic now. Fine. But I swear to God, if I go down, I'm taking you with me. I leaned closer, eyes locked on hers. Too late, I said. You already tried. And you lost. She slapped me again, this time in front of everyone. Gasps echoed across the ballroom like fireworks. And I just laughed. Loud, real, unbothered. I left her standing there, her reputation bleeding out on the floor, and stepped into the night. But I wasn't done. Because Trevor, remember him? The assistant she threw our marriage away for? Yeah, he reached out again. Turns out Brooke didn't just use him for late-night relief. She used him to funnel money through dummy nonprofits in exchange for favors. And he had receipts. Literal ones. He wanted a deal. Immunity, protection, maybe even a career boost. I didn't promise anything, but I did set up a meeting with the agents. Brooke was cornered now. Legally, publicly, personally. And still, she tried to call me. Dozens of times. Left voicemails begging, then threatening, then sobbing. Told me she missed me. That I was the only one who ever truly understood her. I didn't answer. Not until the last one. Please, Logan. I don't know what to do. I can't breathe. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I saved that one. For the court. Because this wasn't just payback. This was justice. Cold, methodical, and fully deserved. But it wasn't until she showed up on my doorstep. Makeup smeared, hair in a bun, wearing a hoodie 2 sizes too big, that I realized just how broken she'd become. And for a brief second, I felt nothing. Not hate. Not sympathy. Just clarity. I opened the door. Why are you here? I asked. Her eyes were red. I lost everything, she whispered. I nodded. I know. She stepped inside without waiting for permission, like it was still her home. Like I still owed her something. The scent of her perfume, faint, familiar, and somehow sad, hung in the air between us. She looked around the place, taking it in. You redecorated, she said, trying to sound casual. I had to. You torched everything on your way out. She winced, but only slightly. No apology followed. There never was one. Just silence and entitlement. I'm not here to fight, she finally said. Good. I replied, motioning toward the couch. Sit down. She did. Hands trembling, voice low. They froze my accounts. I heard. They took the apartment. I figured. She glanced at me, sharp and bitter. Why are you so calm? I shrugged. Because I'm not the one drowning. She clenched her jaw, and I could see the tears building behind her eyes. But Brooke never cried in front of anyone unless she wanted something. I thought we were in this together, she whispered. Even after everything, I thought. You thought wrong. I interrupted. You cheated on me, lied to me, humiliated me, blacklisted me from every firm in this city, and laughed in my face while doing it. So forgive me if I don't feel like we're on the same team. She stood up. Her voice cracked. I was scared. You were getting close to my dad. He was telling you things I didn't even know. I thought you'd take everything. I stared at her. So instead of trusting me, you destroyed me. You don't get it, she said. That's how I was raised. Power isn't something you share, it's something you own. I stood up now too. Close. Too close. Then you better own this, I said. All of it. Her breath caught. So what? You brought me here to gloat. No, I said. I brought you here to say goodbye. That hit her like a punch. What? You're going to jail, Brooke. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month, but it's coming. And when it does, I won't be at your trial. I won't send letters. I won't visit. I won't even remember your name. She looked like she might collapse. For the first time, the steel in her spine cracked. I'm scared, she said. Good, I whispered. She left without another word. I watched her walk to the elevator, shoulders slumped, heels clicking with less pride than ever before. The door closed, and that was it. That night, I went back to the file cabinet. The real one, the one behind the false wall in my office. Inside were documents, USBs, hard drives, voice memos. All of it cataloged, indexed. The full weight of her sins in digital ink. I sealed them into a padded envelope and handed it off the next morning to Agent Ramirez. Final piece, I said. She flipped through the top layer, nodded. You've done more work on this case than some of our own people. I had motivation, I replied. As I walked out of the federal building, the sun broke through thick clouds above the skyline. It felt poetic. Cheesy almost. But real. I could breathe again. Trevor messaged me later that night. He was in hiding, paranoid as hell. Apparently Brooke was sending people to track him down, scare him into silence. But it was too late for that. He'd flipped. Completely. I just wanted to get out, he told me. She promised we'd run away together. Then she cut me off. She always does, I said. I offered him protection. Not because I cared, but because his fear would keep him loyal. And I needed that. The case was evolving now. Brooke wasn't the only one going down. Her mother, her uncle, even her fake charity board. All of them were on the radar. This was bigger than I expected. But I wasn't scared. Not anymore. Because I had what she never could understand. Control. The call started again. Blocked numbers. Unknown IDs. Silent voicemails followed by distorted breathing. Then the texts, screenshots from old arguments, twisted half-truths, photos of us smiling at fundraisers like we'd been something worth remembering. She was unraveling. Then came the real threat. A package arrived at my office. No return address. Inside, burnt photographs of my apartment, my car, even a grainy image of me leaving the federal building. Just one note scrawled in red ink. Watch your back. You think this is over. I stared at it for a long time, not angry, not scared, just tired. Brooke had always played dirty. But this was desperation. A last gasp before the final fall. I handed it over to the agents, and they took it seriously. Security detail was assigned. My office swept. Cameras installed at my home. But she wasn't going to stop. I knew that. I just didn't expect her to show up at my mother's house. My mom called me shaking, voice barely above a whisper. She came here. Brooke said she wanted to explain herself. You didn't let her in, did you? Of course not. But she stood out there for nearly an hour, screaming, crying. Then she just laughed. That laugh. I could hear it in my head. Cold, sharp, unhinged. I drove over immediately. Found the security cam footage already uploaded to the cloud. Brooke pacing outside like a caged animal. Hair wild, eyes bloodshot. At one point, she pulled out a lighter and held it to the mailbox before tossing it away and collapsing on the lawn. She was crumbling, imploding, and she wanted me to witness every second of it. Later that night, she sent me one last message, a video. Her face was swollen, makeup smeared, mascara bleeding into her skin like war paint. She was in some hotel room, bottle in hand, tears running down her cheeks. You were supposed to need me, she said into the camera. You were supposed to chase me, to beg, to hurt. She laughed again, high and hollow. I was always better than you. You were just a pet project, a sidekick with good cheekbones. Then her voice dropped to a whisper. But you know what the worst part is? I still dream about you. Every night. I wake up thinking you're next to me. And then I remember what I did. What you did. And I want to die. She looked dead into the lens. I hope you rot for what you've done to me. I didn't respond. I just saved the video, encrypted it, and forwarded it to Ramirez. Then I turned off my phone. I needed space. Clarity. A way out of the storm. So I left the city. Rented a cabin upstate, middle of nowhere. Just me, the woods, and the silence. No noise. No Brooke. No threats. And yet, I couldn't stop hearing her voice. You're nothing without me. I'd heard it so many times, I started to believe it. Until now. Until I realized I was more me without her than I'd ever been in our entire marriage. Up there in the cold, crisp air, I started writing again. Journaling. Sketching out the past like a timeline, tracing the wounds, marking the shifts. It helped me remember who I was before her. And then one morning, as the sun filtered through the trees, I got the call. We have her, Ramirez said. She tried to flee. Booked a flight under her assistant's name. We intercepted her at JFK. I didn't say anything. Just listened. She's being processed now. Charges are stacked. It'll go to trial. She's not getting out of this, Logan. I closed my eyes. Let the silence say what words couldn't. That night, I drank a toast to the man I used to be. The one who thought love could fix poison. Who believed promises whispered under satin sheets. Who thought trust was something that came with a ring. That man was gone. In his place stood someone colder, sharper, but still human. Someone who had finally reclaimed his life. The trial was scheduled for the spring. By winter, Brooke had gone completely off the rails. Every week, there was a new headline. Former socialite collapses in courtroom. Carrington heiress screams at prosecutors in explosive hearing. She was a spectacle, exactly what she always feared becoming. And for once, people saw through her. No one was buying the performance anymore. I sat in the back row for the preliminary hearing. She didn't know I was there. Didn't see me when she stumbled in, wrists cuffed, wearing that bland tan suit like it itched every part of her skin. Her lips were chapped, hair pulled tight into a bun that couldn't hide the fact that she hadn't slept in days. The prosecutor laid out the charges. Wire fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, witness intimidation, even blackmail. I watched her expression shift with each word, from defiance to confusion to something like fear. But not the kind that makes someone change. The kind that makes them dangerous. Her attorney, a man I once saw her mock for wearing off-brand loafers, tried to argue mental fatigue, emotional distress, grief over her father's death. The judge wasn't moved. Neither was I. After the hearing, I stepped outside and lit a cigarette. I don't even smoke anymore. I quit the day she first lied to my face about working late. But today, I made an exception. That's when someone tapped my shoulder. It was her mother, Cynthia Carrington. Fur coat, pearls, lips pursed like she'd sucked on a lemon. "Logan," she said with that ice-cold tone only old money can master. "We need to talk." I let out a slow breath. "I think you've all said enough. Not about this." She motioned for me to follow her to a black SUV parked along the curb. I hesitated, then followed. Inside, it was quiet, climate-controlled, and scented with expensive perfume. "She's sick," Cynthia said. "She's toxic," I corrected. "She needs help. She needs consequences." She studied me, that same arrogant tilt of the head Brooke had inherited. "You think you're the first man she's broken? The first to think you could save her?" I stayed silent. She was born into chaos. I made sure of it. Her father, God rest him, was too soft. Gave her too much power too soon. "And you," she leaned in. "You were just the latest lesson she had to learn." I laughed bitterly. "You talk about her like she's a failed science experiment." Cynthia's eyes didn't blink. "She is." Then she handed me a document. A single sheet of paper. "What's this?" "Insurance," she said. "For both of us." I scanned it quickly. It was a record, audio transcripts, internal memos, banking routes. Everything tying Cynthia to the foundation Brooke used to funnel money. The charity front. The smoking gun. "Why would you give me this?" "Because if my daughter decides to drag me down with her," she said calmly, "I want to make sure I can drag someone else down faster." I shook my head. "Your whole family's a goddamn chessboard." "No," she corrected. "It's a graveyard." And you just climbed out. I walked away without saying another word. I didn't want her games. Didn't want her leverage. I wanted peace. But peace doesn't come easily to men who've walked through fire. Even when you win, the scars stay. The final hearing was brutal. Brooke refused a plea deal. Thought she could charm the jury. Thought her old tricks would still work. They didn't. The day the guilty verdict came down, I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I just walked out of the courtroom, into the sunlight, and kept moving. Because that was the last time I'd ever hear her name in a room that mattered. And I liked it that way. Months passed. I didn't go to her sentencing. I already knew how it ended. 15 years without parole, minimum security, but still prison. Even with all the favors she tried to cash in, even with her last-minute crocodile tears, the judge saw through it. Said she was a danger to the financial integrity of this country. That line made headlines for a week straight. I watched from a distance, from hotel rooms and quiet bars, places she never knew, places where her name didn't echo. I traveled, reconnected with people who knew me before I was Mr. Carrington. Some were surprised I was still alive. A few asked if I'd forgiven her. I hadn't. Forgiveness is for people who made a mistake. What she did was never a mistake. It was a choice. A series of calculated betrayals. She didn't just cheat with her body. She cheated with her ambition, her greed, her soul. And I paid for all of it. One night, I got a letter. Real paper. Real ink. The return address was the federal facility in Illinois. Brooke. The envelope was clean, almost sterile. Inside, 5 pages of slanted handwriting, the loops tighter than I remembered. She started soft. Said she hoped I was well. Said she thought about me every day. Said prison had opened her eyes. Then she got bitter. Said I turned her father against her. That I manipulated him into leaving her vulnerable. That I waited until he died to start playing God. There it was again. The victim narrative. Like I hadn't watched her lie with a straight face while covered in another man's sweat. Like I hadn't stood there, jobless and humiliated, while she sipped champagne with Trevor and told the world I was unstable. She ended the letter with a warning. Said she was going to appeal. Said her lawyers were still fighting. That when she got out, she wouldn't forget what I'd done. I burned the letter. No drama. No anger. Just flame. I met someone a few weeks later. At a bookstore, of all places. Her name was Elise. No ties to money. No hidden knives behind her smile. She worked as an editor, read too much poetry, had a habit of humming to herself when she thought no one was watching. She never asked about my past. Not once. And I didn't offer. Not yet. But I did tell her one thing, something no one else ever asked. What it felt like. Not the betrayal. Not the lies. But the moment I knew I was free. It was small. Quiet. No fireworks. No monologue. I was making coffee in a hotel kitchen in Lisbon. The sun had just started climbing through the windows, and I realized I wasn't thinking about her. At all. No rage. No ache. No echo. Just peace. That's when I knew. She hadn't won. Not even close. She tried to destroy me. Tried to bury me beneath her father's name. Beneath every lie she could stitch into a courtroom. But she forgot one thing. You can't kill someone who already clawed their way out of the grave. And now? Now I live quietly. No press. No headlines. I own 4 companies under 4 names. I write under a pseudonym. I donate anonymously. I keep my circle small, my secrets tighter. Sometimes, I still hear her voice in my dreams, laughing, mocking, calling me weak. But when I wake up, Elise is beside me, and I remember exactly who the hell I am. It was a rainy Sunday when I got the final call. Agent Ramirez. Calm, professional, but this time her voice had something else in it. Closure. She's not appealing anymore, she said. Her legal team walked. She signed a confession last week. Admitted everything. Even the stuff we didn't ask for. I leaned back in my chair, watching the drops trace patterns down the glass. Why? She's done, Ramirez said. Said she's tired. Said there's no one left to perform for. There was silence on the line for a beat. Then she added, she mentioned you. Of course she did. What did she say? That you were the only person who ever made her feel powerless. And that scared her more than prison ever could. I didn't say anything. Just let it hang there until Ramirez told me she was closing the file. You're free, she said. Free. I hung up and went outside. The rain was soft, almost warm. The kind that doesn't chase people away but makes them slow down, breathe deeper. Elise came out behind me, slipped her hand into mine. You good? She asked. I nodded. Better than good. And I meant it. I'd spent so long carrying the weight of that betrayal, feeding off it, letting it shape me. But now, it was over. The last thread had snapped. No more letters. No more courtroom drama. No more ghosts. Just life. Real, unfiltered, imperfect life, with its quiet mornings and unspoken peace. I used to think closure came with confrontation, with revenge, with making the other person suffer. But it doesn't. It comes when you stop needing any of it. She'll rot in a cell for what she did, not just to me, but to everyone who got caught in her fire. And maybe, for the first time, she'll have to sit alone with herself and see what she really is. That's her story now, not mine. Mine's still being written. Quietly. Honestly. And I hope anyone reading this, any man out there who's been torn apart by someone who claimed to love him, knows one thing. You're not weak for breaking. You're strong for healing. And sometimes, the best revenge is just being free. Call me Dad. Your real father's a coward. I'm the alpha. That's what my wife's lover told my son. Outside his elementary school. In broad daylight. With other parents and kids walking past like it was just another Tuesday. My son, Ethan, stood there clutching his backpack, confused. The same backpack I picked out with him a month ago. Blue, with little dinosaurs on it. I remember how happy he was trying it on, looking at himself in the mirror like it made him invincible. But now he just looked lost. I was parked across the street, engine off, windows slightly down. I wasn't supposed to be there. Natalie told me she'd pick him up. She was working late, again, some nonsense about back-to-back meetings. I'd heard that lie too many times to count. Something felt off lately. Her phone was always on silent. She started hiding in the bathroom with it. Even changed her passcode last week. Red flags were flapping in my face like a damn parade. So I followed her. But she never showed up to the school. He did. Tall. Smug. That perfect trim beard and mirror-polished aviators. He pulled up in a matte black Dodge Charger with custom rims. The kind of car that screams, I need to overcompensate for something. The kind of car you don't just drive to pick up a kid unless you're trying to make a statement. He stepped out of the car like he owned the world, leaned on the door casually, and called out to Ethan with a big fake smile. Hey, little man. Ready to hang with the cool guy today? I watched as Ethan hesitated. His eyes searched for his mom, confused. Then, trusting like all kids do, he slowly walked toward the guy. And that's when it happened. The man bent down, eye level with my son, and said it like he was offering candy. Call me Dad. Your real father's a coward. I'm the alpha. My grip tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Something hot shot through my chest. It wasn't just anger, it was humiliation, rage, and a deep, slicing betrayal all twisted into one. I could have stepped out. I could have charged across the street and knocked every tooth out of that smug bastard's mouth. But I didn't, because this wasn't going to be solved with fists. This needed precision. I pulled out my phone. Hit record. Ethan looked up at him. "My real dad loves me," he said quietly. God, I could barely breathe when I heard that. My boy, my son, still believing in me, even while this guy tried to erase me from his life with 5 stupid words. The man just chuckled and patted Ethan on the head like he was petting a dog. And then Natalie showed up. She came strutting across the parking lot like she was walking a damn runway. Tight white dress. Sunglasses. Heels clicking. Not a trace of shame. She kissed him. Right there. In front of our son. And then they all got in the car and drove off. I didn't follow. Not yet. I sat there. Shaking. Breathing like I'd just finished a sprint. My heart wasn't just broken. It was set on fire. And in that exact moment, I made a decision. This wasn't going to be one of those stories where the husband cries himself to sleep while his wife builds a new life with a better-looking guy. No. She didn't know that I'd already planted a tracker in that Charger's bumper last week. Didn't know I'd been recording her phone calls for days. Didn't know I'd been waiting for her to slip up. Didn't know I'd already spoken to someone at the FBI about Blake Reynolds, Officer Alpha himself. She thought I was a coward. She was about to find out how dangerous a coward can be when he has nothing left to lose. Sunday morning used to mean pancakes and cartoons. Natalie used to wear my t-shirt in the kitchen, humming to some 2000s pop while flipping bacon. Ethan would chase the dog around the couch. That was before Blake Reynolds, her alpha, parked his dirty boots in our lives. This Sunday, it was quiet. Too quiet. No pancakes. No cartoons. Just the ticking of the wall clock and the echo of Natalie's life from the night before. "I have an early meeting tomorrow, babe. I'll be gone by 8. But she wasn't at a meeting. She was at Blake's. How do I know? Because I followed her. I'd installed a discreet tracker under her bumper and a microphone under her dashboard. Call it paranoia, call it justice. I call it survival. A man knows when his kingdom is under siege. And mine had been burning from the inside out. She left the house at 7:52 a.m. dressed like a corporate angel, buttoned-up white blouse, high-waisted black skirt, hair in a tight bun, heels clicking like gunshots across our wooden floor. She didn't even kiss Ethan goodbye. Just whispered something into her phone and left. I waited 5 minutes. Then I followed. She didn't go to the firm's downtown office. She took a left at the intersection, then a right, and another right towards the suburbs. Towards the part of town where cops with shiny badges and dark secrets live in 2-story homes with perfect hedges and invisible sins. She parked in front of his house. He came out shirtless, smiling. That same smirk he wore at the school. She leapt into his arms. Leapt? Like she was 22 again. Like I hadn't just paid for her new car, or fixed the dishwasher at midnight, or tucked our son into bed for the last 7 years. I took photos. Snapped each second of her betrayal like I was building a case, and I had a folder on my laptop now titled Natalie, Evidence. It was filling up fast. They went inside. I stayed in the car. Waited. The tracker said she didn't move for the next 2 hours. The mic picked up only muffled laughter and occasional moans. I didn't need to hear more. I already knew. I'd known for weeks. But this was different. This was final. Around 11:30, they came back out. She looked rejuvenated. Her hair messy now. Buttons undone. Blake kissed her again before she got into her car. I tailed her back home, careful, unseen. She walked in through the front door like nothing had happened. Meeting ran long, she said, tossing her purse on the table. What did you and Ethan do? I looked at her. Really looked. Lipstick smudged, hickey under her jaw, badly hidden with makeup. I almost laughed. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I smiled. Just watch some cartoons. Want lunch? She nodded. Something light. I'm not that hungry. I bet you're not. She disappeared into the shower. I stood in the kitchen, hand on the fridge door, heart pounding like a drum. That's when Ethan walked in. Dad? He asked softly, holding his dinosaur. Yeah, buddy. That guy from school. He told me to call him Dad. My throat closed up. I knelt in front of him, trying to find words that didn't feel like poison. You only have one dad, I whispered. That's me. No matter what anyone says. He nodded and hugged me. Tight. Like he could feel I was breaking inside. I hugged him back. And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was war. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Natalie, her back turned to me like I was just some stranger who happened to rent the other half of the bed. She slept like a baby, peacefully, like she didn't just murder the man who used to believe in her. I stared at the ceiling, counting every inhale she took. My hands itched, my jaw clenched. And my heart? My heart was a minefield. But I waited. I needed the right moment. It came 2 days later. She was making dinner, chicken Alfredo, her "I'm a good wife" special. She always cooked that when she wanted to feel like she still played the role. Ethan was upstairs. I told him to keep his headphones on. He'd already heard enough. "Natalie," I said, calm, like I wasn't about to burn the world down. "We need to talk." She turned, spatula in hand, annoyed. "Now." "Yeah, now." She sighed dramatically, wiped her hands on a towel, and leaned against the counter. "What is it?" I dropped the folder on the table. Thick, stuffed with photos, printed messages, GPS logs, and timestamps. I labeled the cover in big red letters, "Your Alpha Files." She blinked. "What is this?" "Go ahead." Flip through it. She opened it. Saw the first photo of her, kissing Blake in his driveway, leg up like some teenage rom-com. Then another, her sneaking out of work early. Then a message, "Can't wait to feel you again, Alpha." He's so boring. Her expression barely changed. A small twitch in the corner of her mouth. That was all. "You followed me?" she asked, coldly. "No, Natalie. I investigated you." She looked back down at the folder and let out a laugh. A full, mocking laugh. "You're insane," she said, shaking her head. "Like, this is next-level psycho." "Oh, I'm the psycho?" I snapped. "You brought a cop into our son's life and told him to call that piece of trash Dad. You don't get to play the victim." She folded her arms. "You were never there for me. You were always working, always tired. I needed attention, Darren. You think being a provider makes you a man? You think it makes you a husband? I think being loyal does," I growled. "I think protecting your family does." She stepped closer, eyes burning now. "You didn't protect me from boredom. You didn't protect me from feeling invisible." That's when I realized she wasn't sorry, not even a little. This wasn't guilt. This was justification. "So you gave yourself to some roided-up traffic cop with an ego problem?" "At least he makes me feel alive," she hissed. I stood still. The air between us was electric, charged with years of lies, disappointment, and the kind of rage that only comes from betrayal. Then she said the worst thing yet. "Maybe if you were more of a man, I wouldn't need an alpha." That hit me harder than anything Blake could have ever done. I took a deep breath. "You know what?" I said quietly. "Keep him. Keep the alpha. But know this. I left something in his car. Something the FBI is going to love." Her smirk twitched. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone. Hit play. A recording. Blake's voice. Talking about his extra cash gig, running undocumented favors for gang affiliates, tweaking reports, turning a blind eye for a price. Her face turned pale. You recorded him?" "I did more than that. I sent it to someone. Someone who doesn't wear a badge but puts people like him in cages." She looked like she might throw up. "I told you this wasn't over," I said, backing away. "But it will be soon, and not the way you think." And with that, I walked upstairs. Ethan was already asleep. I sat beside him, brushing his hair from his forehead. I wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring, but I knew one thing for damn sure. She wouldn't be calling anyone Alpha for much longer. The next morning felt different. Natalie didn't come out of the bedroom. She locked herself inside. I could hear her pacing, whispering frantically on the phone. Probably trying to warn Officer Alpha. Probably trying to spin this into something that wouldn't blow up in her face. Too late. I'd already lit the fuse. The night before, after our little confrontation, I sent everything, the recordings, the photos, the logs, to a contact I met 6 months ago through a friend. Special Agent J. Cooper, Organized Crime Division. He'd been itching to take down a certain group of dirty cops who'd been moonlighting with cartel runners. Guess who happened to be on that list? Blake Reynolds. Natalie thought I was just some harmless, overworked husband. She forgot I spent 15 years in the logistics and defense sector, managing high-security shipments and encrypted systems. I don't break easily. And when I do, I come back sharp. At 10:14 a.m., I got the call. "Darren Miller?" the voice asked. "Yes. This is Agent Cooper. We received your file. I've got 2 teams reviewing your evidence as we speak." I exhaled slowly. "And let's just say you've done half our work for us. Blake Reynolds has been slippery, but your recordings are the missing link. The voice analysis alone is solid. We're moving in." I didn't smile. "Not yet. I just want my son safe," I said. You have our word. And Darren, yeah, we'll be in touch soon. Stay put. Don't warn anyone. Click. I put the phone down. My hands were shaking. Not from fear. From clarity. I wasn't guessing anymore. This wasn't suspicion. It was action now. I walked past the bedroom door where Natalie still hid. Thought about knocking. Thought about saying something smug. But no. Let her sweat. Instead, I went to Ethan's room. He was coloring. Hey, buddy, I said, kneeling beside him. How you doing? He shrugged. Okay. I pointed at the paper. That a T-Rex? He nodded. He's mad. Why's he mad? Because someone tried to take his eggs. I stared at the page, the red crayon scrawled across the T-Rex's mouth like blood. Kids understand more than we think. He got them back, though, Ethan added with a small smile. Yeah, I said, voice soft. That's good. No one messes with a T-Rex. Nope, Ethan whispered. Then he hugged me out of nowhere. Held on longer than usual. That hug told me everything I needed to know. I wasn't broken. I wasn't losing. I was winning, even if it didn't feel like it yet. I stayed with him for an hour, watching cartoons, pretending things were normal. But inside, I was counting down, like a clock ticking toward impact. At 1:46 p.m., it happened. 2 unmarked black SUVs pulled up outside our house. Natalie screamed. I didn't move from the couch, just muted the TV and waited. She came running downstairs, barefoot, pale as death. Darren, what did you do? I looked at her, calm as ice. I made a phone call. She was about to explode when the doorbell rang. Then the knock. Then the voice, FBI. Opened the door. Natalie turned to me, wide-eyed. You're ruining everything. No, Natalie, I said, standing. You already did that. I opened the door and let justice in. 2 agents stepped inside. Where is Blake Reynolds? One asked. Probably on his way here, I replied. And right on cue, like a bad movie script, Blake's Charger came roaring up the street. He stepped out, cocky as ever, until he saw the agents. The smirk dropped. Guns drawn. Cuffs clicked. It was over in under a minute. As they walked him past me, Blake locked eyes with me and spat. You're dead. I smiled. You already lost. He was stuffed into the SUV. Natalie stood frozen, trembling. Darren, I raised my hand. Save it. The only thing you're explaining now is to your son, when he asks why his new dad is in handcuffs on TV. And I walked away. But this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Natalie tried to play innocent after the arrest. She stayed quiet for a few hours, probably hoping I'd calm down, that the storm had passed. But I wasn't calm. I wasn't storming either. I was something far more dangerous. I was done. Around 6 p.m., she came into the living room. No makeup. No jewelry. Dressed in one of my old hoodies, like she thought wrapping herself in my clothes would erase everything. It didn't. I didn't know he was involved in anything illegal, she said softly. I didn't even look at her. You knew exactly what he was. I didn't, she insisted. He told me he was clean, that he was different. And you believed him? Over your husband? She flinched. I turned to face her. Let me guess, he told you I was boring. Weak. Safe. You didn't want a man who came home every night. You wanted danger. That's what this was, wasn't it? A thrill. Natalie didn't answer. That silence was all the confession I needed. You brought him into our son's life, I said through clenched teeth. You let him hold Ethan's hand. You let him say, call me dad. You handed over our child to a criminal. She started crying. I didn't care. You lied to me for months, I said. Covered up your affair with fake meetings, girls' nights, headaches. You destroyed our family one lie at a time. And now you want pity? Her tears turned to rage. Oh, so now you're the victim, she snapped. I was miserable, Darren. You were a ghost. You think working long hours and paying bills makes you husband of the year? You didn't see me. You didn't touch me. I was dying inside. You could have talked to me, I said coldly. But you chose to screw a cop instead. She scoffed. He made me feel wanted. Like a woman again. He gave me attention. Passion. I laughed bitterly. Yeah, and now he's giving a statement to the FBI. Her face twisted. I stepped closer. You know what's worse than betrayal? Watching someone smile at you every day while they're stabbing you in the back. Watching them kiss your son goodnight after being in someone else's bed. That's who you are now. Don't you dare talk to me like that, she hissed. You think you're better than me? You're pathetic. You're just a bitter little man who got outplayed. There it was. Her real face. No tears. No shame. Just pure venom. I nodded slowly. Okay. Then let's play for real. She looked confused. I pulled out a manila envelope from the drawer. Divorce papers, I said. Already signed. Custody petition, too. I've got enough to make sure you never get full rights to Ethan. You can't do that, she shouted. I'm his mother. And I'm his father. The one who stayed. The one who didn't feed him lies. You think any judge is going to give full custody to the woman who let her criminal boyfriend call himself the kid's dad? Go ahead. Try me. She went quiet. Jaw clenched. I kept going. I also froze the joint account. Transferred the savings into a trust for Ethan. You don't get to touch a dime. You've already taken enough. Natalie stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Good. I'd spent years being her safety net. Her fallback. Her quiet, stable husband. She thought I'd never stand up. But she forgot something. A man only lets himself get betrayed once. Then he becomes someone else. She didn't speak to me for the next 2 days. Just moved around the house like a ghost, avoiding eye contact, slamming a few drawers louder than necessary, pretending to be the wounded one. It was all performance. She started calling her friends in hushed voices, trying to spin a new version of the story. I heard her whispering through the bathroom door. He ambushed me. He's trying to take Ethan away. I didn't know Blake was dirty. Lies, lies, and more lies. She couldn't survive without them. But something had changed, and she knew it. I wasn't reacting anymore. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I didn't ask why. I just moved forward like she didn't matter. Because she didn't. Not anymore. On the 3rd day, she snapped. I came home from picking up Ethan from school. She was standing in the hallway, hands on hips, nostrils flaring. You think you're going to win this? She spat. I put down Ethan's backpack and calmly told him to go play. He ran off without a word. Even he could feel the shift in the air. I don't think, I said. I know. She stepped in close, like she wanted to intimidate me. I'll fight for my son. You won't get full custody. You're delusional. No, Natalie, I said, staring her dead in the eyes. I'm just not stupid anymore. She smiled, one of those poisonous grins that used to work when she was trying to get her way. You think you're some kind of hero now? You think you've won just because Blake got arrested? I didn't win because he got arrested, I said. I won the moment you exposed yourself for who you really are. Oh, please, she scoffed. Like you were some amazing husband. You were dull. Predictable. I wanted a man, not a calendar. I raised an eyebrow. So you wanted someone who breaks the law, manipulates a child, and talks about being alpha while helping cartels? That's your idea of a real man. She faltered for a second. Just long enough. You were nothing but a parasite in this marriage, I continued. Leeching off my time, my loyalty, my patience. And for what? A cheap thrill with a badge and a shiny car. She slapped me. Hard. The room went still. Even the air stopped moving. I didn't raise a hand. I didn't flinch. I just stood there and looked at her. Her chest was heaving. Eyes wide. She expected a fight. She wanted one. But all I gave her was silence. That's when it broke her. Say something, she screamed. Yell at me. Do something. I turned and walked away. That, more than anything, shattered her illusion of control. That night, she cried again. Loud enough for me to hear. Doors closed. Pillows muffling sobs. She wasn't crying for me. Or Ethan. She was crying because the version of her life where she was in control had just died. The next morning, I served her the final blow. I found us a lawyer, I said over coffee. Mediation starts next week. You're staying in the guest room until then. She blinked. You can't just. Oh, I can, I said flatly. And I already did. I also changed the locks and notified your employer about your association with Blake. Might want to check your inbox. She turned white. You bastard. No, I said, finishing my coffee. I'm a father. And I'm done letting snakes live under my roof. She didn't speak after that. Just walked away, her footsteps small for once. Quiet. Like even the floor was done respecting her. She wasn't the storm anymore. She was just the aftermath. By the time mediation day arrived, Natalie had gone from angry to desperate. She showed up in a beige cardigan and fake tears, dragging some cheap lawyer who looked like he hadn't even read the file. I came with a calm demeanor and a thick binder labeled custody evidence. I didn't raise my voice once. I didn't need to. The facts did the talking. I handed over everything. Photos of her dropping Ethan off with Blake while lying about her whereabouts. The video clips from school security showing Blake picking up my son without any formal permission. The recorded phone call where she admitted she needed a man who could handle her. And, of course, the file from the FBI confirming Blake's ongoing investigation. Her lawyer looked at her halfway through and whispered something that made her twitch. When the mediator asked if she had a response, Natalie just stared at the table. I looked across at her, expression flat. "This isn't revenge," I said. "This is protection. Ethan deserves better than being dragged into your circus." That's when she exploded. "Oh, spare me the speech, Darren," she snapped. "You think you're a saint because you got lucky? Because the FBI swooped in and saved you from looking like a fool?" The mediator raised a hand. "Mrs. Miller." "No," she barked. "Let me talk. This man has been emotionally absent for years. Years. I was alone, miserable, invisible. And your solution was what?" I cut in coldly. "To let a criminal become your son's father figure?" She laughed, hollow and sharp. "You were never really there, Darren. You just played house. Blake made me feel like I mattered." "You mattered," I said. "You just didn't respect it." The room went quiet again. I could see it clear as day now. She didn't regret the affair, or the lies, or dragging our son into it. She regretted getting caught. She regretted losing control. We broke for lunch. Outside, her lawyer pulled her aside and whispered furiously. She kept glancing at me, as if still trying to find a crack. But there were none left. The Darren she once toyed with was dead. After mediation, I took Ethan for ice cream. We sat by the lake, quiet at first, just watching ducks wobble along the shoreline. Then he asked, "Is Mom going away?" My heart clenched. "No, buddy," I said. "But we won't all live in the same house anymore." He nodded slowly. "Is it because of the bad man?" I stared at the water, forcing my voice not to break. "Partly, but mostly because grown-ups make choices. Some good, some really, really bad." He didn't cry. He just leaned against me. And that broke me more than any of Natalie's betrayal ever could. That night, I got a text from her. "You'll regret this. I'll make sure of it. No apology. No reflection. Just more venom." So I screenshotted the message, forwarded it to my lawyer, then blocked her. The next morning, I changed Ethan's school pickup password and added an alert system to our front door camera. I wasn't taking any chances. Natalie was unraveling. I could feel it. But I wasn't scared anymore. I was prepared. I was finally the man Ethan needed me to be. And Natalie? She was just another broken soul trying to burn the world because she couldn't fix herself. But I wouldn't let her touch mine anymore. Not my son. Not my peace. Not ever again. The final hearing was on a rainy Thursday. The courtroom smelled like old carpet and stress. Natalie sat 2 tables away, dressed like she just stepped out of a Pinterest board titled Innocent Mother. Hair down, soft curls. Minimal makeup. Pale blouse. She was playing the long game, trying to look like the gentle victim of a cold, calculating husband. But her eyes gave her away. They weren't soft. They were sharp, watching everyone, measuring every reaction. Ethan was at home with my sister. I didn't want him near this part. He'd already seen too much. When the judge entered, Natalie straightened like a puppet being pulled by strings. Her lawyer cleared his throat. Mine sat beside me, calm, fingers steepled. "Ready?" We presented our case. Nothing fancy. Just the facts. The timeline. The betrayal. The danger she introduced into our child's life. She tried to spin it, crying, saying she was misled by Blake. That she had no idea he was dangerous. That I was cold and distant, and she was lonely. That she made a mistake, but it shouldn't cost her her son. The judge didn't buy it. Neither did anyone else in the room. Her crocodile tears fell onto her blouse, and when she realized it wasn't working, she tried a different route. "You're destroying my life, Darren," she hissed at me when the judge stepped out. "Over what? A couple of mistakes?" "Mistakes." I whispered back. "You called another man dad in front of my son." Her jaw clenched. "And he's going to jail," I added. "You let that man in our lives." "That's not a mistake, Natalie. That's a pattern." She looked at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. And maybe she didn't. Because the man who used to tolerate her, forgive her, bend for her, he was gone. The judge returned with the decision. Shared custody, but with a major condition. I would be primary custodian, and all visitations with her would be supervised for the first year. Natalie's face cracked right there in court. The mask finally fell. She tried to object, raise her voice, but the judge shut her down quickly. "This isn't about you, Mrs. Miller. It's about what's safest for the child." And that was it. A gavel strike later, it was done. I walked out of the courthouse into the drizzle, breathing the first real breath I'd taken in months. Not because I'd won, because I'd survived. Natalie followed me out, grabbed my arm in the parking lot. This isn't over, she said through gritted teeth. You think I'll just fade away? I looked at her one last time. You already have. She stood there in the rain, trembling not from cold, but from the realization that she'd lost the one thing she never thought she could control. I got in my car and drove away. Not fast. Not angry. Just free. When I got home, Ethan ran to the door, hugging my leg. Did we win? He asked. I smiled, kneeling beside him. No, buddy, I said. We healed. And as he ran off to play, I looked around the house. It felt different now. Lighter. Like I'd finally exorcised the poison she brought into our lives. I sat down, opened my laptop, and started writing everything. Every detail. Every lie. Every mistake. Not out of spite, but because one day, Ethan might ask. And when he does, I'll show him how a man stands back up when his whole world's been turned to ash. My advice to anyone in my shoes? Trust your instincts. Document everything. Never beg someone to love you, and when they spit in your face, don't wipe it off quietly. Burn the lies. Protect your peace. And walk away like a man who finally remembered who the hell he is.
It all started with a laugh, a sharp, careless cackle that drifted from our bathroom while I was in the hallway tying my tie. Laura was on the phone, and whatever the person on the other end said had her giggling like a teenager sneaking out after curfew. At first, I smiled. Hearing her laugh used to make my day better. But then I caught something. Stop, Mike. You're terrible. No, I can't. Nathan's home. Nathan. That's me. My fingers froze on the tie. A tight, sour feeling spread across my chest. I stood there, half-dressed, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. She hadn't even bothered to lower her voice. The door creaked as I stepped closer. Laura must have caught the sound because the giggling stopped abruptly. When she stepped out, her phone was clutched tightly in her hand. Oh. She jumped slightly. You scared me. Who were you talking to? I asked casually, even though my heart was hammering against my ribs. Becky, she said a little too quickly. She's going through some drama with her boyfriend again. Lie. I could hear it in her voice. I forced a smile. Hope she figures it out. She nodded, walking past me to the kitchen. But her shoulders were tense, her movements sharp and deliberate. Something was off. The clue. That day at work, I couldn't focus. I kept replaying the bathroom scene in my head, dissecting every word, every pause. My gut told me something was wrong, and I'd learned long ago to trust my instincts. At lunch, I did something I'd never done before. I went through our shared phone bill online. There it was, Mike. A number I didn't recognize, repeated over and over, at all hours of the day and night. Long calls. Texts. I clicked on one of the texts. The preview showed enough. I can still taste you. Last night was amazing. I felt like someone had sucker punched me. My stomach twisted so hard I thought I might vomit. Laura, my wife, my partner for 7 years, was cheating on me. And she wasn't even being careful about it. I didn't go back to the office after lunch. Instead, I drove home, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The setup. When I got home, the house was quiet. I knew Laura would be back around 6 p.m., and I had hours to prepare. Her laptop was on the dining table. She used it for work during the day, but I had a feeling there were other tabs open, ones she didn't want me to see. It was unlocked. Careless. Emails. Text logs. Photos. My hands shook as I scrolled through the evidence. Messages from Mike. Some from a guy named Kevin. Pictures. Explicit ones. And then there was a group chat labeled Ladies' Night Cocktail Glass. Curious, I clicked. It wasn't about Ladies' Night at all. It was Laura and her 2 closest friends, Chelsea and Amber, bragging about their affairs. One message stood out like a flashing neon sign. Mike's tool is insane. Poor Nathan thinks I'm at yoga while I'm getting wrecked in a hotel room. Face with tears of joy. My vision went red. My ears buzzed. I slammed the laptop shut and stumbled back, gasping for air. This wasn't just cheating, it was mockery. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't hiding in shame. She was laughing at me. The unraveling. At 5:55 p.m., Laura walked through the front door, humming some upbeat tune. "Hey, babe," she said brightly, tossing her purse on the counter. I stayed seated at the dining table, her laptop open in front of me. My face must have given me away because her smile faltered. "What's wrong?" she asked cautiously. "Sit down, Laura." Her eyes flicked to the laptop, and her face went pale. "Nathan, I can explain." "Sit down." She sat. For a long moment, I just stared at her. The woman across from me, once my best friend, my everything, felt like a stranger. "How long have you been sleeping with Mike?" I asked quietly. She flinched but tried to recover. "I don't know what you're." I slammed my palm against the table. "Don't lie to me, Laura." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Then, finally, "It's not what you think." "Not what I think?" "You were bragging to your friends about how good his tool was." "How stupid do you think I am?" She stared at me, her lips trembling. But then, something shifted in her expression, a flicker of defiance. "You've been distant, Nathan. You work late, you barely talk to me. What did you expect? A woman has needs." My head snapped back like she'd slapped me. "Are you blaming me for this?" "It's not just Mike, you know," she said softly. My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" She shrugged, her gaze cold now. "There's been others." The air felt like it had been sucked out of the room. My pulse roared in my ears. "How many?" I asked through gritted teeth. "Does it matter?" I pushed back from the table, nearly knocking the chair over. "Get out." She blinked. "What?" "Get out of my house." Laura's lips trembled, but she stood. She grabbed her purse, but before she walked away, she turned back to me. "You'll regret this, Nathan. You're nothing without me." The door slammed behind her, and just like that, she was gone. I sank back into the chair, staring at the empty seat across from me. 7 years of love, trust, and loyalty reduced to ash in a matter of hours. But something in me, something raw and primal, told me this wasn't over. Not yet. The silence after Laura left felt heavier than her words. My ears were still ringing with her venom-dripped voice, "You're nothing without me." The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just break your heart, it shatters your identity. Who was I if the person who vowed to love me had been laughing behind my back? I needed air. I needed out of that house. Grabbing my keys, I stormed out and got into my truck. I didn't have a destination in mind, but my subconscious must have. 30 minutes later, I found myself parked outside Iron Core Fitness, Mike's gym. Confronting Mike. The gym was nearly empty when I walked in. A tired-looking receptionist barely glanced up from her phone as I passed the counter. The smell of sweat and rubber mats filled the air, and then I saw him, Mike. He was spotting some guy on the bench press, grinning like he didn't have a care in the world. Broad shoulders, cocky smile, hair styled like he was auditioning for a reality show. This guy. I walked right up and waited until he noticed me. "Can I help you, man?" Mike asked, flashing a toothpaste commercial smile. "You're Mike?" His grin faded slightly. "Yeah, who's asking?" I stepped closer. "I'm Nathan. Laura's husband." The smile evaporated entirely. His hands went up defensively. Whoa, man. Look, I didn't know she was married. Don't. My voice was low and steady. Don't lie to me. You knew. You both knew. People were starting to stare, but I didn't care. Mike took a step back, his Adam's apple bobbing. Look, it's over, all right? She said she was done with me. Oh, you're done? That's convenient because she just walked out on me after admitting to everything. And guess what, Mike? You weren't her only side piece. The color drained from his face. Yeah. You were just a number in her phone, buddy. A bragging right in her group chat. Mike opened his mouth to speak, but I was already turning away. I wasn't here to fight him, not physically, anyway. He wasn't worth it. But as I walked out, something unexpected happened. Nathan, wait. I paused at the door, turning slightly. Mike was holding up his phone. She sent me something last week. I didn't think anything of it, but you might want to see this. The video. In the parking lot, I leaned against my truck while Mike showed me his phone. It was a video, a shaky recording taken from Laura's perspective. She was lying in bed, her hair a mess, wearing the oversized t-shirt I'd given her on our honeymoon. Say hi to the camera, babe, she giggled. The man next to her wasn't Mike. It wasn't anyone I recognized. He was older, gray around the edges, wearing a wedding band. My stomach turned. The video cut out, and Mike looked at me, eyes wide. I didn't ask for this. She just sent it, like she was, showing off or something. Who is he? I croaked. No idea, man. But look, Mike swiped back to the messages. His name's saved as Big Papa, in her contacts. Big Papa. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just infidelity, it was some sick game to her. Thanks, Mike, I muttered, shoving away from the truck. He called after me, but I didn't hear him. My world had narrowed to one thought: who the hell is Big Papa? Unmasking Big Papa. Back at home, I poured a glass of whiskey and sat at the kitchen table with Laura's laptop open again. My fingers flew across the keys, searching her emails, her saved contacts, her cloud storage. Finally, I found something. A hotel reservation under the name Harold Kingsley. Harold Kingsley. CEO of Kingsley and Sons Financial Group. Married. Kids. Big shot businessman. Big Papa. Laura had been sleeping with a guy who probably wore cufflinks engraved with his initials. And judging by the dates on the reservations, they had been meeting up for months, long weekends, midweek getaways. I felt sick. I wasn't even angry anymore. Just hollow. But as I clicked through her emails, something else caught my eye, a forwarded message from Harold. It was titled, "Confidential, do not share." I clicked. Inside was a spreadsheet. Bank accounts. Transfers. Money being shuffled between offshore accounts. It wasn't just cheating. Laura was involved in something illegal. My pulse quickened. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. Laura, what have you gotten yourself into? The unexpected arrival. The sound of tires crunching on gravel snapped me out of my daze. Headlights cut across the living room window. I stood up and peeked through the curtain. Laura. Back already. She stumbled out of her car, heels clicking unevenly on the driveway. She was holding something, a black duffel bag. When she burst through the door, her face was flushed, her hair disheveled. She froze when she saw me. Nathan, what are you doing still awake? I gestured at the laptop. You left quite the paper trail, Laura. Her eyes flicked to the screen, then back to me. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. Harold Kingsley. Offshore accounts. You're not just a cheating wife, you're a criminal. Laura's lip trembled, but then her expression hardened. Nathan, listen to me very carefully. You don't know what you've stumbled into. She dropped the duffel bag on the floor, and a corner of it flopped open. Cash. Bundles and bundles of cash. I took a step back, my breath catching. What the hell have you done, Laura? She took a step closer, her voice low and sharp. If you want to make it out of this alive, Nathan, you'll listen to me. Right now. For a moment, the silence was deafening. Then a faint sound in the distance broke it, the sound of tires, again, approaching the house. But this time, it wasn't just one car. It was several. Blue and red lights flickered through the curtains. The police were here. And Laura, she was smiling. The red and blue lights painted the walls of our living room in flashes, as if the universe itself couldn't decide whether this was a tragedy or a dark comedy. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Laura stood across from me, clutching the duffel bag like it held the last threads of her sanity. And then she smiled, a slow, calculated smile that made my blood run cold. Nathan, she said softly, almost sweetly, you need to listen to me very carefully. If you don't want to spend the next decade behind bars, you'll follow my lead. Me? Behind bars? You're the one playing Bonnie and Clyde with a hedge fund gangster. She shook her head, her expression a mix of pity and frustration. Oh, babe. Poor, naive Nathan. You think you're innocent in all this? My heart stuttered. What are you talking about? She stepped forward, tossing the duffel bag onto the couch. The bundles of cash spilled out like the insides of some grotesque piñata. Your name, Nathan. It's on the accounts. On the papers. On everything. Harold's little operation needed someone squeaky clean, someone with an unremarkable life and zero criminal background. Guess who fit the bill perfectly? You. I staggered back as if her words had physically struck me. My knees buckled, and I caught myself on the edge of the dining table. No. No, you're lying. Think about it. All those forms you signed, for tax purposes, the random investment opportunities I told you about. You signed them without reading, didn't you? Didn't you, Nathan? I wanted to scream, to deny it, but my mind raced back, document after document I had skimmed, trusting her, trusting us. From outside, I heard car doors slam, the distant sound of radios crackling, boots crunching gravel. The police were moving in. Laura reached into the duffel bag and pulled out a small black pistol. I froze. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I raised my hands. Laura, what the hell are you doing? She wasn't pointing it at me, she was pointing it at the ceiling, her face a mess of panic and determination. We're going to make this look right. When they come in here, you're going to tell them I forced you to sign everything. That you were scared. That I manipulated you. You did manipulate me. Say it convincingly, Nathan. Say it like your life depends on it. Because it does. The front door shuddered under the weight of someone trying to force it open. A voice called out from outside. Police. Open up. Laura's eyes locked onto mine, her voice trembling. This is your last chance. Are you with me or not? The door burst open. The next few seconds happened in slow motion. Laura raised the gun, not at the police, but at me. The officers stormed in, flashlights blinding me, shadows dancing against the walls. Drop the weapon. She hesitated, her hand trembling, eyes locked on mine. Drop it, ma'am. And then, bang. The sound exploded in the room, sharp and deafening. But it wasn't Laura who pulled the trigger. It was one of the officers. Laura crumpled to the floor, the gun skidding across the hardwood. Blood pooled beneath her as she gasped for air, her eyes wide with disbelief. The police swarmed me, shouting commands I couldn't process. My knees gave out, and I collapsed next to the couch, staring at Laura as her life slipped away. Her lips moved, barely forming words. I leaned closer, desperate to hear her. Nathan. I had a plan. Her head fell to the side, and just like that, she was gone. The room felt impossibly still despite the chaos around me, the shouting officers, the flashing lights, the smell of burnt gunpowder and copper in the air. They handcuffed me, pulled me to my feet, and shoved me into the back of a squad car. My mind was blank, my ears ringing. Hours later, in a cold interrogation room, the detective across from me leaned forward, arms folded on the steel table. "You're in deep, Nathan." I shook my head. I didn't know about any of this. "You have to believe me." He slid a stack of papers across the table. My signature was on every one of them. Offshore accounts. Wire transfers. Fraud. "It doesn't look good, Nathan. Your wife might have been the mastermind, but you're neck deep in this." My mouth went dry. She set me up. Maybe. Maybe not. He leaned back, studying me. "You've got two options. We can sort this out, or you can take the fall for everything. Your choice." The weight of everything hit me at once. Laura was gone. My marriage, my life, my freedom, it was all hanging by a thread. But then, something clicked. Harold. Big Papa. He was still out there, still pulling strings. I leaned forward, matching the detective's stare. "I'll tell you everything. But you need to go after Harold Kingsley." The detective's expression didn't change, but I saw the flicker of interest in his eyes. And just like that, the game shifted. Laura had played me, twisted me into her pawn. But she had also left loose threads, ones I could pull. As they led me out of the room and back to my holding cell, one thought looped in my mind. The cell door clanged shut behind me with a finality that rattled deep in my chest. The air was thick with sweat and despair, the faint stench of bleach doing little to cover the acrid scent of hopelessness. I sat down on the cold metal bench, my head in my hands. Laura was dead. My wife, the woman I had loved, trusted, and built a life with, was gone. And in her wake, she had left me buried in a mountain of lies, betrayal, and criminal charges that could keep me locked in this concrete box for the rest of my life. But Harold Kingsley was still out there. Big Papa. The real puppet master. I knew one thing: if I wanted to get out of this mess, I had to flip the board over. The next morning, they dragged me out of my cell and into another interrogation room. Same cold steel table. Same two-way mirror. But this time, a different detective waited for me, a woman, sharp-eyed, with a no-nonsense energy that made her feel more dangerous than the last guy. She tossed a stack of glossy photographs on the table. Images of Laura. Me. Harold Kingsley. Some were surveillance shots, others looked like stills from hidden cameras. "You've got powerful enemies, Nathan," she said, her voice low but steady. "Your wife was knee-deep in some very dirty business, and you were either her accomplice or her patsy. Which one is it?" I leaned forward, my voice sharp. "You think I had anything to do with this? You think I wanted to lose everything, my wife, my freedom, my life? I was set up." She smirked faintly. "That's what they all say." I slammed my palm on the table. "Harold Kingsley. He's your guy. Laura was just a pawn in his game. And now, he's going to keep laundering his money and walking free while I rot in here." Her expression didn't waver, but I caught the slight twitch of interest in her brow. "You have proof?" she asked. I hesitated. "Not exactly. But I have details, dates, hotels, offshore accounts. And I know where to start looking. The detective leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. All right, Nathan. We'll play it your way. But if you're lying to me, if you're just trying to buy yourself time, I'll make sure they bury you so deep in this system that no one will even remember your name. 3 days later, they released me on a provisional deal, a shaky agreement that hinged entirely on whether or not I could deliver Harold Kingsley. I was given an ankle monitor, a police escort, and a deadline. 30 days. If I couldn't produce evidence linking Harold to the offshore accounts and the money laundering, I'd be hauled back to jail and charged as an accomplice. But I had a lead. Laura's laptop had been confiscated by the police, but I still had access to our shared cloud account. And there, buried deep in an encrypted folder labeled Yoga Retreats, I found something, a calendar entry for Rendezvous, Room 514, Halcyon Suites, set for the following evening. I didn't hesitate. The Halcyon Suites was exactly what you'd expect from a place that catered to the ultra-rich: marble floors, sparkling chandeliers, and bellboys who looked like they'd been plucked from a Ralph Lauren ad. I walked in wearing the nicest clothes I still owned, a pressed blazer and a pair of leather shoes that had seen better days. I kept my head down, moving with purpose. Room 514. When I reached the door, I paused, my ear pressed against the cool wood. Inside, I could hear faint voices, a man's deep baritone and a woman's nervous laughter. I took a breath, squared my shoulders, and knocked twice. The door opened slightly, and a woman peeked through, a blonde, maybe in her early 30s, wearing an emerald green dress. She wasn't Laura, but I recognized her face from one of Harold's gala photos. "Yes?" she asked, her voice tight. "I'm here to see Harold," I said calmly. "Tell him it's about Laura." Her eyes went wide, and she hesitated for a second before stepping back and allowing me in. The suite was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows, leather furniture, and an obscene amount of alcohol displayed on a glass bar cart. And there he was. Harold Kingsley. Big Papa himself. He was lounging on the couch, wearing a silk robe and holding a crystal tumbler of whiskey. When he saw me, his smile faltered, but only briefly. "Nathan," he said smoothly, like we were old friends catching up over drinks. "I was wondering when you'd show up." "You knew I'd come?" I asked. He nodded. Laura was sloppy. Always was. Brilliant in her own chaotic way, but sloppy. My fists clenched at my sides, but I forced myself to stay calm. "She's dead, Harold. You know that, right?" His smile faded, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw genuine sadness in his eyes. But it was gone just as quickly. "She got careless," he said, swirling his drink. "That's what happens when people play games they're not equipped for." "I have everything," I bluffed. "The emails, the accounts, the transactions. If you think you're walking away from this clean, you're dead wrong." He laughed, a deep, gravelly sound. "Do you know how many people have tried to take me down, Nathan? You're not special. You're just another loose end." I barely saw him nod toward the corner before a shadow moved, a man in a suit, holding a gun. "Whoa." I raised my hands, my heart hammering. "Relax, Nathan," Harold said, standing up. "You'll be taken care of. Quietly. Efficiently. No fuss." But then, the sound of shattering glass. A red laser dot flickered across Harold's chest. He froze, his glass slipping from his hand and crashing onto the floor. Snipers. Police. They were here. The room erupted into chaos, shouting, gunfire, breaking glass. I hit the floor and covered my head as smoke and debris filled the air. When the dust settled, Harold was on the floor, a red stain spreading across his silk robe. The blonde woman was screaming. Police officers swarmed the room. Someone grabbed me by the arm and hauled me to my feet. The sharp-eyed detective from before stood there, her expression hard but satisfied. "You did good, Nathan," she said. As they escorted me out of the suite, the night air hit me like a slap. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Laura was gone. Harold was gone. But me? I was still here. The cold night air bit into my skin as I stepped out of the halcyon suites, escorted by 2 officers and the sharp-eyed detective, Detective Marlowe. Behind us, the chaos of Harold Kingsley's empire collapsing unfolded, sirens blared, red and blue lights flashed against the sleek exterior of the hotel, and men in suits were being dragged out in cuffs. "You should have been dead in there," Marlowe said, her voice sharp but laced with something almost like respect. Harold wasn't the type to let loose ends walk out alive. I glanced over at her, my head still spinning from the chaos. "Well, I guess I'm either lucky or just too stubborn to die." She gave me a tight-lipped smile, then nodded toward one of the black SUVs parked nearby. "We'll debrief you at the station. You're not free yet, Nathan. There's still a lot to sort out." But before I could respond, her radio crackled to life. A distorted voice came through. "Detective Marlowe, we've got an issue. One of Harold's men slipped away in the confusion. We think he's heading to Nathan's house. Repeat, possible retaliation at Nathan Carter's residence." My stomach dropped. "My house?" Marlowe's eyes narrowed, and she didn't hesitate. "Get him in the car. Now." The drive to my house felt endless. I sat in the back of the SUV, my hands clenched into fists on my lap, sweat pooling on the back of my neck. Marlowe sat in the passenger seat, barking orders into her radio while the officer driving kept glancing nervously in the rearview mirror. When we finally screeched to a stop outside my house, my blood ran cold. The front door was ajar, swaying slightly in the breeze. Inside, faint lights flickered, casting eerie shadows through the curtains. "Stay in the car," Marlowe ordered, her hand on her sidearm as she and 2 officers moved toward the house. But I couldn't stay still. This was my house, my life. And whoever was in there wasn't going to get away with it. I slipped out of the SUV, staying low as I followed them up the driveway. The first thing I noticed was the shattered glass near the entryway. The second was the faint sound of movement upstairs, footsteps, heavy and deliberate. Marlowe signaled to the officers, and they fanned out, moving through the lower level while she gestured for me to stay put. But then, I heard it. A voice. A child's voice. "Daddy?" My heart stopped. It was faint, barely audible, but I knew that voice. My niece, Sophie. I had forgotten, my sister had dropped Sophie off earlier that day to spend the night because she and her husband were at some charity gala. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. She was upstairs. With him. Without thinking, I bolted up the stairs 2 at a time. Marlowe's voice echoed behind me, "Nathan. Stop." But I didn't care. My feet barely touched the steps as I rounded the corner into Sophie's room. And there he was. A hulking man in a dark leather jacket, a pistol in one hand and his other wrapped tightly around Sophie's wrist. She stood there in her pink pajamas, tears streaking down her face. "Let her go," I roared, stepping into the doorway. The man turned his cold, dead eyes toward me, and for a split second, I saw the flicker of recognition. He knew who I was. "Move, or I'll..." He didn't get to finish. A single gunshot rang out, deafening in the small room. But it wasn't him who pulled the trigger. It was Detective Marlowe. The man stumbled backward, clutching his chest, and collapsed onto Sophie's tiny princess bed. Blood soaked the pastel comforter, spreading like an ugly flower. Sophie let out a terrified wail and ran straight into my arms. I held her tight, shielding her face from the grisly scene behind us. Marlowe stepped into the room, gun still drawn, her face pale but steady. "You okay, Nathan?" I nodded, my voice hoarse. Yeah. Yeah, but, she's just a kid. She shouldn't have seen that." Marlowe holstered her gun and crouched down in front of Sophie, her voice soft and warm. "Hey there, sweetheart. It's okay now. You're safe. You did so good." Sophie clung to me tighter, her little body shaking with quiet sobs. The officers arrived moments later, securing the scene and removing the body. Marlowe escorted us downstairs and outside, where paramedics were waiting. Hours later, after Sophie had been picked up by my sister, who had arrived in hysterics, the house felt impossibly empty. The carpets were stained, the glass was still shattered, and the air carried the faint scent of gunpowder. Marlowe stood with me in the wreckage of what used to be my home. "You're lucky," she said softly. "That man was Harold's fixer, sent to clean up any loose ends after Harold went down." I looked around at the chaos, my chest tight. Laura. Harold. That guy upstairs. How did my life turn into this? Marlowe exhaled, crossing her arms. "The thing about people like Harold Kingsley, they build their empires on other people's backs. People like you. Like Laura. And when it all starts to crumble, the fallout doesn't care who's innocent." I nodded slowly, letting her words sink in. "Is it over?" I asked. She hesitated. "For now. But there's always someone else pulling strings in the shadows. Don't get too comfortable, Nathan." She turned and walked toward her car, leaving me standing in the wreckage of my old life. As the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, I realized something. Laura might have been the spark that lit this fire, but Harold was the inferno. And me? I was just lucky to have crawled out alive. But luck only lasts so long. The morning sun spilled through the shattered windows, casting fractured light across the wreckage of my living room. Dust particles floated in the beams, suspended like tiny ghosts in the aftermath of chaos. I sat on the edge of the couch, what was left of it anyway, holding a half-empty glass of whiskey I'd found stashed behind the bar. It was 7 a.m., and the silence was suffocating. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Unknown number. I stared at it for a second, my gut tightening. After everything, every call felt like it carried a loaded gun. I picked up. "Nathan Carter." A voice crackled on the other end, a familiar one, smooth and deliberate. "Morning, Nathan. You look like hell." I froze, every muscle locking up. The voice belonged to Harold Kingsley. But Harold was dead. I saw him die, blood spreading across that silk robe, his lifeless eyes staring at the ceiling. "No. You're dead?" "Almost, Nathan. Almost." My breathing quickened, panic clawing up my throat. "This isn't possible." "Oh, but it is. You should know by now, Nathan, men like me don't go down that easy. That was just one of my shells you cracked open. The real game? It's still being played." The line went dead. I dropped the phone like it was burning my hand, my heart hammering in my chest. The whiskey glass fell from my grip, shattering on the floor. An hour later, Detective Marlowe was back at my house, pacing across the shattered glass and wrecked furniture like it was just another day at the office. "You're telling me Harold Kingsley called you this morning? From the grave?" "Yes." I snapped, running a hand through my unwashed hair. "It was him. I know his voice. He said the game isn't over. That he's still out there." Marlowe stopped pacing, her sharp eyes drilling into me. "Nathan, we saw Harold Kingsley die. We processed his body. He's in the morgue. I signed off on it myself." "Well, then explain the call." I yelled, frustration bubbling over. She sighed and rubbed her temples. There are two possibilities. 1. You're being played. Someone is using Harold's voice, maybe AI, maybe some other tech, to mess with your head. 2. She hesitated. 2 what? I demanded. 2. Harold planned for this. Maybe he had contingencies in place, decoys, people pretending to be him. Men like Harold don't leave the stage without an encore performance. I sank back into the couch, the weight of everything pressing down on me like an anvil. Either way, Marlowe continued, her voice softer, you're still in danger. She crouched down in front of me, her expression deadly serious. Nathan, listen to me carefully. If Harold, or whoever is pulling the strings, thinks you're a loose end, they're going to come for you again. You need to disappear. Disappear? Where am I supposed to go? Witness protection? A cabin in the woods? She stood up, arms crossed. Something like that. But first, we need to verify this phone call. We'll trace it. See if it's coming from some burner phone in a back alley or if it's something bigger. Later that evening, I sat in an unmarked police surveillance van parked outside a rundown diner on the outskirts of town. Marlowe was next to me, headphones on, monitoring the signal trace from the phone call. The hum of equipment and flickering screens filled the cramped space. Almost got it, one of the tech guys muttered, tapping furiously on a keyboard. A red dot popped up on the screen, a location ping. Got it, he said triumphantly. The call came from an industrial site about 10 miles from here. Abandoned textile factory. Marlowe glanced at me. Well, that's subtle. Without hesitation, she turned to the team. Gear up. We move in 15. But I grabbed her arm before she could walk away. No. I'm coming with you. She shook her head firmly. Absolutely not. This isn't your fight anymore. No, Marlowe, it is my fight. This started with me. With Laura. With Harold. I'm not sitting this one out. She studied me for a long moment before sighing. Fine. But you stay behind us. You don't go charging in. The factory was a sprawling, decaying corpse of industry. Rusted machinery, broken windows, and graffiti-covered walls gave it an eerie stillness. The SWAT team moved like shadows, their boots silent on the cracked concrete floors. Marlowe signaled for everyone to stop as we reached a large metal door marked Loading Dock 3. She glanced back at me, her expression a clear warning. I nodded, gripping the borrowed Kevlar vest tighter around my chest. With a swift motion, the team breached the door. The space inside was massive, dimly lit by flickering industrial lights. In the center of the room was a single chair, and in it, a man. Bound. Gagged. Bloodied. But it wasn't Harold Kingsley. It was someone else. Someone I recognized immediately. It was Detective Samuels, the first detective who had interrogated me back when Laura died. He was barely conscious, his head hanging low. As the team moved in closer, Marlowe leaned down, pulling the gag from his mouth. Help, he croaked. It's a trap. The lights cut out. Total darkness. Then, bang. 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 Gunshots erupted around us. Flashlights flickered. Chaos exploded in every direction. I hit the floor, crawling toward cover as bullets ricocheted off metal beams. Somewhere in the distance, a voice boomed over a loudspeaker, distorted and menacing. You thought this was over, Nathan? Oh no. This is only the beginning. It wasn't Harold's voice. It was someone else. Someone new. And in that moment, as gunfire raged and shadows danced on the walls, I realized something chilling. Harold Kingsley wasn't the end of this nightmare. The factory was silent again, except for the faint hum of flickering monitors and the distant drip of water somewhere in the shadows. Victor's lifeless body was sprawled on the control room floor, his dark eyes frozen in an expression of twisted amusement. Detective Marlowe stood over him, her pistol still raised, smoke curling lazily from the barrel. I coughed, sucking in deep gulps of air as I pushed Victor's weight off me. My hands shook as I gripped the edge of the control panel and tried to pull myself upright. Marlowe grabbed my arm, steadying me as I staggered to my feet. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice tight with adrenaline. Yeah, I think so," I rasped, rubbing my throat where Victor's hands had nearly crushed my windpipe. We stood there for a long moment, the only sound between us the faint buzz of broken equipment. Down below, the SWAT team was regrouping, sweeping the area for any lingering threats. Marlowe's sharp eyes scanned Victor's lifeless body before looking at me. "Is this it, Nathan? Is he the last one?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe that Victor was the final piece of this horrific puzzle, that with him gone, the nightmare would end. But something in my gut told me the truth. "No," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot." Marlowe's jaw tightened. "What do you mean?" I gestured weakly toward the monitors, their cracked screens still displaying faint traces of surveillance footage and lines of distorted code. Victor wasn't the mastermind. He was just another layer. Another player in whatever sick game Harold started. Marlowe sighed, holstering her pistol and running a hand through her short dark hair. "Well, that's just great. Another shadow puppet with a bigger monster pulling the strings. And here I thought tonight would wrap this up in a neat little bow." I let out a humorless laugh. If only. We both turned our attention to the monitors, watching as static flickered and shifted. One screen caught my eye, footage from what looked like a lavish office space. A desk covered in papers, a glass of whiskey sitting next to an untouched cigar, and a shadowy figure pacing in the background, face obscured by dim lighting. "Who is that?" Marlowe asked, leaning in closer. "I don't know," I said, my stomach twisting into knots. "But whoever it is, they're still watching. They know we're here." As if on cue, the monitors all went black at once, plunging the room into an eerie silence. Marlowe swore under her breath. "We need to get out of here. Now." Back outside, the cold night air hit me like a wall. Police vehicles surrounded the factory, red and blue lights flashing in chaotic patterns. Officers were coordinating cleanup, medics were attending to the wounded, and the SWAT team was still double-checking every corner of the factory for any lingering threats. I leaned against the hood of Marlowe's car, staring blankly at the sprawling industrial complex. Marlowe joined me, a tired expression etched into her face. "Nathan, listen to me carefully. Whatever this is, it's bigger than you, bigger than Harold, bigger than Victor. But you're in the middle of it. And that makes you a target." I swallowed hard, my throat still raw. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to disappear. Go somewhere off the grid. No phones, no emails, nothing that can be traced. Just vanish for a while. At least until we can figure out who's behind all of this." I shook my head. "I can't just run, Marlowe. If I disappear, they'll go after someone else. Someone I care about. I have to see this through." She sighed, leaning closer, her voice low and urgent. "Then at least be smart about it. Keep your head down. Don't trust anyone. And if you hear even the faintest whisper of someone watching you, run." Before I could respond, one of the SWAT officers approached us, holding something in a plastic evidence bag. "Detective Marlowe, we found this taped under one of the control panels in the factory." Marlowe took the bag and held it up to the light. Inside was a small, sleek flash drive. My chest tightened. Whatever was on that drive, it was important. Marlowe handed it to me. "Take this, Nathan. Whatever's on here might be the key to ending this nightmare. But don't plug it into just any computer. Find someone you trust, someone off the radar, to take a look at it." I took the bag, holding it tightly in my hand like it was a live grenade. A few hours later, I was back in my apartment, or what was left of it. The whiskey glass shards were still scattered across the floor, the air still thick with the remnants of last night's chaos. I locked the door behind me, double-checking the deadbolt and sliding a chair in front of it for good measure. I sat down at my kitchen table, the flash drive in front of me. Its sleek black surface seemed to hum with secrets. My laptop sat nearby, but I hesitated. Marlowe's words echoed in my head, "Don't plug it into just any computer." No. Not yet. I grabbed a backpack and stuffed the drive into a hidden pocket. If someone wanted whatever was on this thing, they'd have to come and take it from me. The weight of exhaustion finally settled over me, dragging me down like an anchor. But sleep wouldn't come, not with the shadows of Harold, Victor, and that unknown figure looming in every corner of my mind. I didn't know where this path would lead, but one thing was clear: this wasn't over. I barely slept that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside, had me on edge, my eyes flicking to the door, to the shadows. I kept expecting someone to burst through, to drag me into whatever this twisted nightmare was. But nothing came. The silence was suffocating. The next morning, I found myself back on the road, the flash drive stashed in my jacket pocket like a ticking bomb. Marlowe had given me a name, Claire Jacobs. She was a tech expert, someone off the radar. Someone who could crack the drive open without drawing attention. The car's engine hummed beneath me, the road stretching out ahead, empty and endless. Every turn I took felt like a step further from normal life, a step into a world where nothing made sense. Harold's death, Victor's cryptic words, and that damn drive, it all swirled together, a storm I couldn't outrun. I pulled up to a small, nondescript house on the outskirts of town. It was quiet here, no one around, no one watching. Claire had given me the address in a hurried, cryptic message, promising she could help, but only if I came alone. No police, no one else. Just me. I knocked on the door and waited, the seconds stretching, my heart pounding in my chest. When it finally opened, I was met by a woman in her late 30s, her dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. Her eyes were sharp, assessing me with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "You Nathan?" she asked, her voice low, almost too quiet. I nodded. "Claire Jacobs?" She stepped aside, letting me in without another word. The inside of the house was neat, almost sterile, with rows of computers and monitors lining the walls. The air smelled faintly of coffee and electronics. "I hope you brought more than just trouble with you," Claire said, closing the door behind me. "What's this about?" I pulled the flash drive out of my pocket and placed it on her desk. "I need you to get into this. Find out who's behind it. I'm being followed, and I need to know what I'm up against." She picked it up, turned it over in her hands. Her fingers were quick and precise as she slid it into one of the computers. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the screen lit up, and a cascade of code began to spill across it, too fast for me to follow. "What the hell is this?" Claire muttered under her breath. "This is encrypted beyond anything I've ever seen." I paced the room, my nerves on edge. "Can you do it? Can you crack it?" "I can try," Claire said, but her voice was hesitant. "But it's not just a file. This is a system. And it looks like it's connected to something much bigger." I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "What do you mean, bigger?" She didn't answer immediately, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she navigated through layers of security. After a few minutes, the screen flickered and then froze. Then, slowly, a message appeared in bold letters. "You're too late, Nathan." I froze. My heart sank. Before I could react, Claire's hands flew over the keys again. "Shit. It's a trap," she hissed. "The drive, it's bugged. They've locked me out." The computer screen flashed, and then went black. The room was suddenly too quiet, the air thick with tension. I turned toward Claire. "What's going on?" But before she could respond, a loud crash came from the back of the house. The door to the kitchen flew open, and two men stepped in. Both were dressed in tactical gear, guns in hand. I recognized the glint of metal. They weren't here to negotiate. Claire was already moving, ducking low behind the desk. I instinctively grabbed her arm and pulled her to the floor, my chest tightening. "Who the hell are they?" "They're not from around here," she whispered urgently. "You've been marked, Nathan. Whoever gave you that drive, they know you're here now." I heard a voice behind me, calm and menacing. "Drop the gun, Claire. We don't want to hurt you. We just need the drive." I felt my stomach churn as I turned slowly, facing the two men. The first one was tall, with a scar running down his cheek, his eyes cold and calculating. The second was shorter, younger, his face hidden beneath a mask. Both of them radiated danger. "No one's taking anything," Claire spat, pulling out a small pistol from beneath her desk and aiming it directly at the taller man. He didn't flinch. "You're going to make this harder than it needs to be." I didn't wait to see what happened next. In one fluid motion, I grabbed a heavy chair from behind me and swung it toward the man's head. It connected with a sickening thud, and he crumpled to the ground. The younger man barely had time to react before I tackled him, driving him into the floor with all my weight. We rolled, struggling, until I managed to get on top of him and wrestle his gun away. He struggled beneath me, but I had him pinned. "You don't know who you're messing with," the man growled, trying to free himself. I pressed the barrel of the gun against his temple. "You're not in charge here. Tell me who's behind this. Now." Before he could respond, the sound of a door slamming open echoed through the house. I turned just in time to see a figure step into the room. It was Harold Kingsley. But not in the way I expected. He was alive. His expression twisted into something unrecognizable, almost smug. His presence was like a shadow that filled the entire room, suffocating every breath I took. "No one ever said you could have all the answers, Nathan," Harold's voice rang out, cold and calculating. "You should have stayed in the dark." I felt my world tilt again. The last thing I remembered before everything went black was Harold's icy stare. I woke up with a splitting headache, the taste of blood in my mouth. My body was stiff, as though I had been lying on cold concrete for hours. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was the dim light of a basement. A single bulb flickered overhead, casting long, haunting shadows across the cracked, grimy walls. I blinked, trying to make sense of what was happening. I was sitting on a metal chair, my hands bound tightly behind my back. My head ached, my vision blurred, but I could still make out the outlines of Harold standing in front of me. His cold, calculating eyes locked onto mine as he paced back and forth, his steps slow and deliberate. "Wake up, Nathan," Harold said, his voice smooth, almost friendly, but with a sinister edge. I was hoping we could have a little chat. I tried to push through the fog in my head, but the words barely formed. My throat felt dry, and I spit out a mouthful of blood. "What the hell? Harold?" He smiled, slow, cruel. "You always were a bit slow on the uptake, weren't you?" He leaned closer, his breath smelling faintly of whiskey. "But I suppose I can't blame you. I've kept you in the dark for far too long." I strained against the ropes that bound me, my heart racing. "You're alive," I rasped. "I saw you die. I saw everything." Harold chuckled softly, his laugh low and mocking. That was the point. You were never supposed to know. None of you were. Not the cops, not the SWAT team, and certainly not you, Nathan. But you couldn't stay out of it, could you? Always poking around where you didn't belong. I shifted, trying to find some way to free my hands. My brain was still struggling to piece everything together, but the pieces didn't fit. Victor, he was your guy, wasn't he? He said it. He said you were behind all this. Victor? Harold raised an eyebrow. I wouldn't call him my guy. He was just another pawn. Another loose end that needed to be cleaned up. And you, Nathan, you were the next one. I froze. The blood drained from my face. What does that mean? What do you want from me? Harold's eyes gleamed. He took a step forward, looming over me. I wanted to see if you could be useful, Nathan. I wanted to see how much you could take before you broke. But the truth is, you're just another inconvenience. Just another piece in a game that's too big for you to even understand. My breath caught in my chest. I could feel the panic rising. I'll never help you. You're sick. You killed Laura. You destroyed everything. You're nothing but a coward, hiding behind all these lies. His expression remained cold, but his voice hardened. You think it was about Laura? It was never about her, Nathan. She was just collateral damage. She was weak, and that's why she didn't survive. But you? You're different. You've got a certain resilience. He stepped back, smirking. It's what makes you interesting. But don't think for a second that I'll let you walk away. Then why keep me alive? I spat. Why not just end this now? Harold gave a slow, almost sadistic grin. Because you're still useful. And once you understand what I'm doing, you'll realize why. He turned toward the wall behind him, where a series of monitors flickered to life, showing grainy, black and white footage. What is this? I asked, straining to see. Harold didn't answer immediately. He simply gestured toward the screens. The first one flickered to reveal a grainy image of Marlowe, tied to a chair in a dark room. I felt the blood drain from my face again. Marlowe? I gasped. What the hell did you do to her? Harold smiled. Oh, she's fine for now. But if you don't play your part, I'm afraid I can't say the same for her. A chill ran down my spine as I watched the screen, my heart pounding. What do you want, Harold? What is all this? Why are you doing this? Because I can, he replied flatly. And because it's the only way to stay ahead of the game. You see, Nathan, there's always someone watching. Someone with a bigger plan. But you wouldn't understand. I struggled against my bonds again, adrenaline surging through my veins. You're insane. You're going to get what's coming to you. Harold took a step back, his eyes narrowing. Am I? You're already part of the game, Nathan. You've been part of it since the beginning. Suddenly, I heard a faint buzzing sound, like a phone vibrating. Harold pulled out his phone and checked it. His expression changed slightly, but it was enough to make my heart race. He turned back to me. Looks like your time's up, he said, his voice low, almost regretful. But don't worry. I'm sure you'll find your way out of this mess. It's all in the game, after all. With that, Harold turned and walked toward the door. I heard the lock click shut behind him, leaving me alone in the dark, my pulse pounding in my ears. I was terrified. Terrified for Marlowe. Terrified for myself. But I wasn't dead yet. I knew what I had to do. I had to find a way out. For Marlowe. For myself. And for the truth that had been buried beneath lies, betrayal, and blood. The game wasn't over. Not yet. And no matter how deep I had been dragged into it, I was going to end it, my way.